Okay, welcome back everyone. I'm going to get started with the Eightfold Path. And as I mentioned, this is the core central teaching of the Buddha. Everything else that he teaches plugs into the Eightfold Path in one way or another. So if somebody has a sincere interest in learning how to get to enlightenment through the teachings of the Buddha, they would need to know the Eightfold Path inside and out, backwards and forwards, left, right, up, down. You're going to most likely revisit this teaching multiple times. So if this is the first time that you've ever learned this with me, I would encourage you to really sink in and learn it really deeply. But if you have learned this before, then this is a great refresher for you, because you're going to need to revisit this more than one time. You're really dialing this into your life closer and closer. Essentially what the Eightfold Path is 8 individual dials that you're dialing in closer and closer. Just like if you had a speaker system and you had 8 dials and you're tweaking these dials to get a better and better sound out of the speaker system, you're doing the same thing with the mind, is that you're dialing in these 8 things closer and closer to get a better and better quality mind. So as we go, feel free to ask any and all questions that you like. Just like we always do, you're welcome to use the microphones here. This way the folks online will be able to hear you. And those of you guys that are online joining us, you can ask questions by putting that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or raising your hand electronically in Zoom and ask any questions that you like. So this is the Eightfold Path. As I mentioned, it's 8 individual steps. I'm going to walk you through using the words of the Buddha to help you understand each individual step. Right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. We're probably going to need to take a break halfway through because it's quite a bit of information. It usually takes me about 2.5 hours to really explain it in detail. And you notice that it's organized into 3 sections. There's the wisdom section, the moral conduct section, and the mental discipline section. So I'm going to walk you through this step by step. I've got right view on the bottom because right view is the foundation. That's what you're building everything else on top of. Once you establish right view, you understand the problem in the unenlightened mind, the cause of that problem, the elimination of it, and the path forward. So yesterday we studied right view, but here's what the Buddha says about right view in the Eightfold Path. The Eightfold Path is explaining oftentimes pointing to other teachings. So here in the Eightfold Path, the Buddha says, "In what, monks, is right view? It is, monks, the wisdom of discontentedness, the wisdom of the cause of discontentedness, the wisdom of the elimination of discontentedness, and the wisdom of the way of practice leading to the elimination of discontentedness. This is called right view." So this is the Buddha pointing to the Four Noble Truths and saying that is right view. And then you go look at the Four Noble Truths and you study the Four Noble Truths to understand what that is. This Eightfold Path is consolidating his teachings. It plugs in and integrates in many of his other teachings. So underneath of this line here, I have the top section of the Four Noble Truths. There's a whole lot more that he taught about the Four Noble Truths that I didn't include here because it's too long to show on one slide. But here I'm just showing you the top section of the Four Noble Truths to give you confidence that what the Buddha is talking about in the Eightfold Path is right view. It is the Four Noble Truths. And I taught that to you yesterday, but some of you guys weren't here yesterday. So let me just give you a little recap for those of you guys that weren't here. In order to understand the Four Noble Truths, you need to understand the 3 universal truths. And we call these truths because the Buddha knows that they're true. I know that they're true. Other people know that they're true. But in order for you to benefit, you need to know that they're true. And that's why you're learning, you're reflecting, and you're practicing. You're not believing the teachings. You're learning, investigating, examining. You're reflecting to independently verify that they're true. And then you're practicing to be able to see the truth for yourself. So here I taught the universal truth of impermanence, explaining how conditioned objects, they arise, they change, and they fade away. All these things around you are all impermanent. This is a foundational teaching that you need as a building block to be able to understand the Four Noble Truths. So the Buddha is explaining to you the way the world is around you, that all these things are impermanent around you. Then we talked about discontentedness and conditioned feelings, pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and feelings that are neither painful nor pleasant. The pleasant feelings are like happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, euphoria. These are very pleasant for the mind to experience, but they're based on some condition. So for example, if it's sunny outside, you might be happy. Or if your bank account is a certain balance, you might be happy or excited. This is a conditioned feeling. The feeling of happiness is based on some condition. And the condition is the sun, or the condition is your bank account, or some other thing, right? And now, because you've had that conditioned pleasant feeling, and that condition is impermanent, that means your happiness is impermanent. So as soon as the sun changes and now it's raining, you might be sad or you might be frustrated. Or as soon as your bank account balance goes from this to this, now you might be sad or frustrated because you based your inner feeling of happiness on some condition, and that condition is impermanent. So this is the problem in the unenlightened mind, is that it's experiencing conditioned feelings. The mind's going up and down and up and down. And I refer to this as discontent, discontented, or discontentedness. Okay, we talked about these in detail, and I helped you independently verify these. And then we talked about the universal truth of non-self, which is how the mind is clinging to this body or this mind, thinking that this is who you are. The mind's confused. It has a certain self-image or a certain self-identity that it's clinging to. And as long as you cling to this body or this mind, thinking that this is who you are, it's easy for you to get shaken up. Somebody compliments you and tells you how handsome or how beautiful you are, you might get pleasant feelings. These complimentary thoughts, these agreeable things that are being said to you, you get these conditioned pleasant feelings. But now, because of impermanence, it's only a matter of time before somebody says something degrading and disparaging about this physical body or about the self-identity in the mind. The self-identity is your culture, your ethnicity, maybe your sexual orientation, your nationality, your job or occupation, any number of things the mind can hold on to as an identity. So if you cling to these and you get pleasant feelings when those things are intact, or you have agreeable contact, then when you have disagreeable contact due to impermanence, now you're going to experience the painful feelings. So the universal truth of non-self is there to tell you and help you to be able to see the truth that there is no self. This body isn't you. This mind isn't you. There is a body, there is a mind, and they've come together for this existence, but this isn't you. It's not who you are. But the unenlightened mind is going to cling to it and think that this is who you are. So this helps you to eradicate personal existence view, which we're going to be talking about on Thursday evening in a lot of detail. So I introduced you guys to this yesterday. Then we talked about craving, desire, attachment. This is how the mind has mental longing and strong eagerness, chasing after the objects of its affection, thinking the next new shiny object waiting around the corner is going to provide some lasting satisfaction. So it chases and chases and chases. It has certain expectations, certain wants. This is the craving, the desire, the longing, the yearning, wanting things to be a certain way. So if you were in the mall and you notice a new pair of shoes and you're like, yes, new pair of shoes. Yes. Oh, I just got to have that. Or new phone or new computer or something else. Maybe you really want a boyfriend, or you really want a girlfriend, or something like this. Or you really want more money, or you want a bigger house. You want a bigger car, nicer car. You want this, want this, want this. The mind's thinking these external things are going to provide some kind of lasting satisfaction. So it chases after them. This is what the craving, desire, attachment is. It almost feels like the mind's pulling towards something. Okay. And these are building blocks to help you understand the Four Noble Truths, where we talked about these four statements, where you understand the problem, the cause, the elimination, and the path forward. So the problem is that everyone that is unenlightened will experience discontentedness, those conditioned feelings where the mind's going up and down, up and down. You probably have periods of calmness and peacefulness here and there, but it's only a matter of time before you get agitated or annoyed, or so excited. Yay, mom's coming to visit. I got a new apartment, a new flat, a new house. Mom's coming. Yeah, this is going to be so great. Mom's coming to visit me. But then she calls you on Friday and says, I can't come. Something's come up. But now you get sad or you get frustrated, right? This is the problem, that the mind's going up and down based on some condition. And now the second noble truth is explaining the cause of this problem. The cause is the craving, desire, attachment, the longing and the yearning. What we will typically do in the unenlightened state is we'll blame the other person. In this example, we'll blame mom. Mom made me angry because she didn't come. No, it was the craving, desire, attachment. Mom not coming is just impermanence. That's all that is. That's just impermanence. Mom said she was going to come. She had every intention to come, but then something else came up. Something changed. Her plan is not permanent. But if your mind's craving permanence, which is what the unenlightened mind does, this is the second noble truth, helping you to understand this, that the mind's going to crave permanence. As long as you're craving permanence, you're setting yourself up for discontentedness. And that's what the mind does, because it's just untrained. It has that lack of wisdom that we were talking about last night. So as long as the mind's craving, desiring, attached, wanting, expecting, you want everyone to be polite to you. And then when someone's impolite, you get angry or frustrated. You want your bank account to be this, and you want it to always be that way or higher. And then when it's not there, it's down here, you're sad or frustrated. Or you have a boyfriend or girlfriend, you guys are together, and wow, everything feels great, so much pleasure. But then when you separate, the mind experiences this impermanence that it doesn't like because it's craving for this relationship to be permanent. Or you have a brand new car, and now it gets a scratch on the car, and now you see this scratch, and that represents impermanence, and the unenlightened mind doesn't understand impermanence. It has this craving, this desire. So as long as that craving and desire is there, when you see the scratch, you'll get angry or frustrated or irritated. And you might blame the person who scratched your car or the scratch itself. But the person who scratched the car didn't cause you to be angry. It's the mind craving permanence, wanting things to be permanent. It'd be wonderful if nobody ever scratched your car, right? That would be outstanding. But that's not the world we live in. We live in an impermanent world. And the Buddha is explaining to you the way the world is. He's not explaining to you the way the world should be. He's explaining to you the way the world is so that you can understand the natural laws of existence, and now you can function more peacefully with these natural laws, where the mind can be awakened to this wisdom. So the cause of the problem is the second noble truth is explaining craving, desire, attachment. Then the third noble truth is explaining the elimination of that problem, which is to eliminate craving, desire, attachment. Oh, this remote's not working. There we go. The elimination of the problem is to eliminate craving, desire, attachment. If you can eliminate craving, desire, attachment, then that's what's going to eliminate your discontentedness. But in the unenlightened state, there's so many different cravings, desires, attachments. It's almost like a trash heap. As soon as you uncover a couple of cravings and you clear that out, you realize there's a whole bunch more. And then you clear those out and there's a whole bunch more. You clear those out, there's a whole bunch more. Eventually you get to solid ground when the mind's enlightened, right? You cleared out all this trash, you cleared all this pollution. So the Buddha gives us breathing mindfulness meditation and generosity to train the mind to let go. That's what you were doing with walking meditation, that the mind doesn't want to be in the present moment. It doesn't want to look through the eyes and look straight at the floor. It wants to look over here. It wants to look over there. It wants to have this thought. It wants to have that thought. So you're pulling the mind back and saying, no, let that go. Get back over here. And with walking meditation, it's through the eyes. And with all the other meditations, the seated, lying, standing, it's through the breath. You bring the mind back to the breath. That's like a post or a pillar. And every time the mind pulls in a certain direction, you're pulling it back and pulling it back and pulling it back. Just like if you had a post or a pillar in the ground and there was an animal tied to this rope, the animal would keep pulling and pulling and pulling and pulling, and it would keep getting yanked back and yanked back and yanked back. Eventually, the animal's going to get tired and it's going to sit down by that post and pillar. It's no longer going to pull. And that's what your mind is doing. It's pulling and pulling and pulling, and you keep yanking it back and yanking it back and yanking it back. Eventually, it's going to sit down by that post or pillar, and it won't have craving anymore. But this takes time to gradually train the mind to do this. So the third noble truth is explaining to you that you can eliminate discontentedness by eliminating craving, desire, attachment. And just like you can independently verify all these others, you can independently verify this one too. If you ever think back to a time where you had a boyfriend or girlfriend, when you guys first broke up, you were angry or sad or lonely or feeling bored or whatever it was, you were missing that person because you were attached to them. At some point, your mind let go. At some point, you're like, you know what? If he wants to be with another person, so be it. Or if she wants to be with another person, so be it. Let them go. I wish them well. And then your mind let go, and you didn't miss them anymore. And you didn't feel angry, and you didn't feel sad anymore. Your mind let it go. That's what you're doing in the third noble truth, is you're learning to let go, right? And it's breathing mindfulness meditation and generosity that's going to help you to be able to do that. But then the fourth noble truth is explaining the path to eliminating discontentedness is the Eightfold Path. That's the complete perfect plan that's showing you how to eliminate your cravings, desires, attachments. And that's what I'm going to teach you now, is the entire Eightfold Path. Okay? So any questions that you guys have on this little short recap of the Four Noble Truths? Yesterday, I went through this in a lot of detail. So those of you guys that weren't here, some of you guys, if you would like to learn this in detail, I have videos, I have podcasts, I have an audiobook, I have regular books that you can learn this in detail. And then there's other courses and stuff like that as well. Okay, I'm not seeing any question. Yes, ma'am. If you can get a mic. Oh, she's got one right there.
Press it. So we learned the word of non-self yesterday or the other day.
Yep.
So I heard the word of higher self. But I'm not so sure about the higher self. But when I check the word of higher self, so it's related of our soul. Then I wonder. So we are non-self. But they're the higher self. So I wonder kind of what the relationship is between them.
Yeah, there is no higher self. Oftentimes people are using language like this without having deeply penetrated into the teachings of the Buddha, and it can make you confused and you can get confused. But there is no self. What I would refer to in this way is I would say higher consciousness, a higher mind. That's what you're doing by getting to enlightenment, is you're eliminating the pollution of the mind, and the mind's moving to this higher consciousness. But I wouldn't use the phrase higher self, because that is in direct conflict with the universal truth of non-self.
So the consequence is the no higher self.
There's no self.
Higher consciousness.
Yeah, higher. You can use that terminology. That would fit in really nicely.
Okay.
The Buddha says very clearly, he says, there is no self. There is no you there. And as I explained it to you guys yesterday and showed you how to independently verify it, you can independently verify, yeah, there is no self here. This shirt isn't you. This skin isn't you. These bones aren't you. This hair isn't you. None of this stuff is you. It's just physical structures. It's just physical form, but it's not who you are as a person. There is no you there.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Related to that, when you were talking about the mind, and the mind is something that, we can train, and you said, there's three aspects. There's the mind, which I understand. And you said there's the body. And then you said there's a third thing, which you refer to as person. I know it's just like terminology, but yeah, can you elaborate on the mind, understand, body, understand. And then there's this third thing, a person.
Sure. There's some people that refer to this as the observer. That's what some people refer to it as, and that might help you a little bit better. The Buddha uses the word person. He calls it a person. So the person is the combination of the body and the mind. And now we refer to this as the person. And like I mentioned, some people use the word observer, and this can kind of maybe help you because you're kind of observing the mind, you're kind of looking at the mind. You're looking in at the mind. And that's what you're training, is the mind. So understanding these things are separate really help you, because there's going to be situations where you got to sit there and have a conversation with the mind. And it's like, yeah, I know you really want to have that beer, and that beer would be very tasty and it would taste very delicious, but you know what? It's really not good for you, Mr. Mind. And your mind's like, yeah, but come on, we're going to feel happy for a while. Yeah, but then you're going to feel tired and sad and lonely, and you're going to have a headache and all these other things. You sometimes have to sit down and have a conversation with the mind. And this can help you to think of these as three separate things, because then you understand the person is having a conversation with the mind, or this observer is having a conversation with the mind. Does it help you?
Yes, it does. So, yeah, but again, I think highlights an important point for me. The focus here is on the action, rather than trying to develop some, like other traditions, whatever, they spend a lot of time talking about a particular cosmology, right? There's a God here and there's three gods here, or there's a trinity and all that. And then there's the soul, reincarnate the soul and the ego. Yeah, this is much more focused, doesn't seem to be trying to get too preoccupied with the story, but rather the action of controlling, of improving the mind.
Yeah, the Buddha is teaching you about this being who you are. Like in this retreat, you're going to learn about the 5 aggregates, the 6 sense bases, and these things like this, where you're learning about this being so that you understand how to function as this better and better human being. So it's not about what other people are doing or these other beings like God or anything like this. The Buddha does teach these kinds of things, but what's going to get to your enlightenment is understanding this being who you are, understanding this mind, understanding the world around you and all this impermanence, like the impermanence of this sound, right? We know it's impermanent, and it's great when that's not going on, but sometimes there's going to be a sound and we can't control that. We're in a city and there's going to be a sound, and we can remain content and peaceful and joyful despite those kinds of things. So when we understand impermanence and we don't have craving, then we can be peaceful and joyful. But if we're craving for things to be a certain way, like for example, if we craved a certain tone in here in this room, then when there's something like that going on, we'd be discontent. So it's not that God's controlling that or some other being's controlling that. That's just a human being who's doing their work. It sounds like they're doing some kind of work. We're over here doing what we would like to do. And temporarily, we're going to hear, this sound occasionally. And that's okay. We don't need to go out there and tell them to stop, because what we're doing isn't any more important than what they're doing. It's just like, okay, well, you do what you do, and we're going to do what we do. We're not going to bother that person, and they're not going to bother us, because he can't bother us or she can't bother us if we don't have craving. If we don't have craving, then there's no bother, there's no annoyance, there's no frustration. So understanding this being who you are and understanding the world around you is what's going to help you to get to that contentedness, because you won't crave things to be permanent because you understand impermanence. And that's where the real work and the real training comes in, is that when you're in real life situations, can you understand impermanence and train the mind to let go of any craving that it might have? Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, so I don't see any questions online. All right, so let's go into the rest of the Eightfold Path, okay? So you guys learned this really thoroughly yesterday, for those of you guys that were here. And again, for those of you guys that weren't, if you haven't learned this yet, there's YouTube videos that I've created on this. There's books, audiobooks, and things like this that will help you to go through it thoroughly, because you need to know right view very deeply and very thoroughly to establish right view. What wrong view is to blame other people for your discontent feelings. Can you turn off the mic there? It's just getting a little feedback. What wrong view would be is if you blamed other people for the feelings that you're experiencing. If you blamed other people for what you were experiencing, this would be wrong view. But when you accept responsibility and accountability for the feelings and emotions that you're having, this would be right view, establishing right view. So that's why we call it right view, because you're accepting responsibility and accountability for the feelings that you have. Where in the unenlightened state, what we tend to do is blame other people for what we're experiencing, and that would be wrong view. Okay, so now we're going to talk about right intention. Some people translate this as right thought or right thinking, because this is what an intention is, that you're having certain thoughts or certain thinking. And what the Buddha says here under right intention is, he says, in what, monks, is right intention? The intention of renunciation, the intention of non-ill will, the intention of harmlessness. This, monks, is called right intention. So here he's talking about 3 things: renunciation, non-ill will, and harmlessness. Okay, these 3 things are intentions or thoughts or thinking that you need to cultivate. The first one, renunciation. This is an interest and willingness to let go or give up unwholesomeness in the mind's false beliefs and false perceptions of reality. That if your mind was holding on to what you currently believe about the world, there's no way you could get to enlightenment. You're going to need to have the intention or the thought or the thinking of letting go. There's certain false beliefs that your mind has right now. But with the teachings of the Buddha, you're not eliminating your current beliefs and bringing in new beliefs. What you're doing is you're learning new wisdom by independently verifying the teachings. And now this new wisdom shows you that your beliefs are false, and then you get rid of your beliefs and you bring in the wisdom. So rather than carrying around this false perception of reality, you learn things like the Four Noble Truths, and you independently verify it, and you reflect on it, and you see the wisdom that your mind is indeed causing your own discontent feelings. All this time throughout our life, we believed that other people were causing us to be angry. And now when you're presented with information that you can independently verify and you can see the truth, you need to practice the intention of letting go of those false beliefs. So one of the very first false beliefs and misperceptions that you need to eliminate is that other people are causing you to be angry and frustrated. So you need to be able to practice the intention of renunciation, which is essentially having an open mind and being willing to learn something new, to gain wisdom. And then when you see what you currently think you understand is false, that you're willing to let that go and bring in this new wisdom. Because if you continue to hold on to the things that you currently think you know, then you're not gaining new wisdom to be able to then awaken to the wisdom to then improve the condition of the mind. If you're experiencing anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, boredom, loneliness, shyness, resentment, jealousy, any kind of displeasure whatsoever, any stress or anxiety, there's still wisdom that your mind doesn't have. So you're going to need to let go of those false beliefs, those false opinions, those misperceptions, and bring in new wisdom until the point that your mind is so wise that you no longer experience any discontent feelings. So you're going to need to practice this intention of renunciation. And remember, the ego's in there in the unenlightened state, wanting you to believe that you know this world and that everyone else is wrong and you're right. But you guys have taken the first step of gaining new wisdom, which is come to learn, right? The ego has to be dropped down to a certain degree in order to just be able to come and learn. There's tons of people in the world that won't even show up to the temple to learn because the ego is too high. Right? So at least you guys have gotten the ego down to a certain degree where you're at least willing to show up to a classroom and learn from a teacher. But now as you're learning and you're reading books and you're learning in classes, you're going to need to have that intention of renunciation where you're willing to have an open mind and where you learn something new and you gain wisdom. You're willing to let go and give up these false beliefs, these misperceptions, this unwholesomeness in the mind. So that's what the intention of renunciation is, having an interest and willingness to let go and have this open mind. Then the second part here is the intention of non-ill will. Non-ill will is a double negative, right? So non-ill will is the same as goodwill. So what ill will is animosity or bitterness or anger, hatred, those lesser versions. What non-ill will is goodwill, or the genuine interest in seeing all beings be well, active goodwill. This is loving kindness. When you guys learn about loving kindness is goodwill, a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. So that's what the Buddha is saying here is you need to have this intention or this thinking or this thought that you have this genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. And this comes together with the third one, which is harmlessness, that you need to be willing and interested in having the thinking and the thought of practicing harmlessness, where you're disinterested in causing harm to any beings. Because as long as you have this harmfulness in the mind where you're wanting to cause harm, whatever harm you put out is going to come back to you. So you're not going to be able to get to a peaceful, calm, serene, and content mind with joy and a peaceful, calm, serene, and content life with joy if you continue to cause harm in the world. So here in the wisdom section, one of the foundational teachings that you need is to develop the intention or the thinking or the thought of being disinterested in causing harm and incapable of causing harm to other beings, where you're just not interested in causing harm through your speech, through your actions, through your livelihood. This is what we're going to be studying next, the moral conduct section. So this harmlessness is very crucial, that you're disinterested or incapable of causing harm to others. So this is right intention, okay? And now to just summarize these two steps, Right view is the Four Noble Truths, which includes accepting responsibility for your own feelings, your intentions, your speech, and your actions. Understanding that it's your own mind that is causing any of your discontent feelings. If you continue to believe that other people are causing you to be angry, then you need to train 8 billion people to do things your way. You need to go around the world and train all those people. You shouldn't even be here at the temple because your mind is already perfect. It's everyone else that's causing you to be angry, right? But when you establish right view, you see, no, that's not true. What's really going on here is my mind is causing its own discontent feelings, and now I need to train it, and I need to eliminate the cravings, desires, attachments. I need to accept responsibility for your own feelings. That's what right view is. Wrong view would be to blame other people. Right intention or right thinking or right thought is have the intention of renunciation, the willingness to give up and let go, the intention of non-ill will or loving kindness, and the intention of harmlessness. These are the three aspects of right intention: renunciation, non-ill will, and harmlessness. Okay, so it looks like we have a question coming. Perfect. What's your question, ma'am?
What about mosquitoes that maybe bite you during the night and they don't let you sleep? Like, how can you not kill them?
Okay, so what you usually do when a mosquito lands on you is you try to blow it off, right? You blow it off or you swipe it off, right? Mosquitoes don't bite me, right? They don't bite me at all. When I was younger, they used to, but now I don't cause any harm to other beings, and beings don't cause harm to me. I don't even have a mosquito bite me. I see mosquitoes in my room sometimes, and I'll just kind of sometimes open the door and kind of let them go out. But sometimes I don't even do that because they don't even come around and do anything to me. They don't bite me. They don't anything. But as long as you're killing mosquitoes, they'll continue to bite you because you're causing harm in the world. So now they're going to continue to bite you. But if you start blowing them and swiping them off and start having this loving kindness for them, you'll notice that eventually I suspect that you'll experience the same thing that I do, which is they don't even bite me anymore. Yeah. This is going to be part of right action. You're going to see this in right action because that's a bodily action of causing harm. But it starts with this intention, because now we're going to move into the moral conduct section, and it's built on this. It's built on right view and right intention. If you didn't have the intention of harmlessness, you wouldn't be able to build your moral conduct. Any other questions? Let me see if we got anything online here. Okay, I'm not seeing anything online either. Okay, so now let's go into the moral conduct section. Well, whenever we're talking about moral conduct in the teachings of the Buddha, it's very important to not think of these as rules or commandments or anything like that. What he's explaining to you with the moral conduct section is he's explaining to you the natural law of Karma, of cause and effect, or action and result, the results of your decisions. He's helping you to see this natural law very clearly. He's not giving you rules or commandments. He's not trying to fear you into doing anything. He's not even trying to convince you to do anything. He's already gotten to this enlightened mental state. His mind is peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. He's just sharing with you what it took for him to get to that point. And what it took for him to get to that point is to understand this natural law of Karma, of cause and effect. And as long as you're putting out harm in the world, this harm is going to come back to you. So what you're going to see in right speech, right action, and right livelihood is he's going to expose you to this natural law of Karma so that you can see certain things that you're doing through your speech and your actions and your livelihood could potentially cause harm. And when you put this harm out, that harm is going to come back to you. But when you understand the natural law of Karma and you gain wisdom, you'll naturally make wiser decisions that produces wholesome results, that you're not causing harm in the world anymore. So that's why harm doesn't come back to you, right? So when you hear me share with you the moral conduct section of right speech, right action, right livelihood, you can understand it that he's exposing you to the natural law of Karma. He's showing you the cause and effect, or the action and result. So let me give you an example here when we talk about right speech. This first step is the moral conduct section, which is the third step of the Eightfold Path. The Buddha says, in what, monks, is right speech? Refraining from lying, refraining from slander, refraining from harsh speech, refraining from frivolous speech. This is called right speech. So what he's doing here is he's exposing you to the natural law of Karma. And he's saying that if you refrain from these things, this would be very wise for you. And it's going to produce wholesome results. So now what you do is you don't believe this. You start reflecting on it as part of your experience here in life, that we've all lied at some point in our life as we were growing up. And you ask yourself, when you lied, did it produce wholesome results, wholesome karma, or did it produce unwholesome karma or unwholesome results? When you lie, does it produce wholesome results or unwholesome results? It produces what? Unwholesome. Yeah. Right. Because when we lie, people find out that we're lying. And then all of a sudden we're not dependable. We're not trustworthy. People can't depend on us. And now we lose opportunities to advance in our career. Or if you're lying, you have to keep your lies straight. You told lies to one person, you told another lie to another person, another lie to another person, and your mind's trying to figure all this out, right? And how can you get peaceful and joyful and calm in your mind if you're having to switch around and figure out what you told one person versus another? So if you don't lie, you don't have to do all of that. And then you can be dependable and trustworthy, and people will give you projects and you can advance in your career, because people are going to find out your lies and they're going to discover your lies. So here you can independently reflect on each one of these and see the truth for yourself. Slander or gossip. If you've ever done that before, you know that when you're slandering and gossiping people, they're going to be upset, right? Someone might come and try to beat you up. People have got murdered over slandering, right? If you look at news reporters and journalists, sometimes they do investigative reporting, they expose some person and they start slandering in the news and they end up getting murdered or killed. I'm not saying that this is what should happen. I'm just sharing with you this is what does happen, right? Remember, the Buddha is not explaining to you the way the world should be. He's explaining to you the way the world is. So with a lot of unenlightened minds in the world, if you go around and slander and gossip people, you're damaging their reputation, and now they're going to feel injured by that, and now they're going to want to harm you, either physically or some other way, right? And if you've done slander or gossip, then you probably know that people slander and gossip you too, right? That you go around talking to your friends, you're slandering people, gossiping people. Next thing you know, your back's turned, they're gossiping and slandering about you, right? Because of your action or because of your speech here, right? Because of your choice to speak in this way. And then harsh speech. What this is your tone, your tempo, and your word choice. You would like to always speak gentle. And this is going to be challenging for you when you have craving, desire, attachment in your mind, like maybe with your mom or your dad or your brothers, your sisters, your life partner, your children. It might be very challenging for you to speak gentle, but that's what's going to help you eliminate your cravings, desires, attachments, like what the Buddha said in the Four Noble Truths. By speaking gentle, you're going to have to knock down your cravings to be able to speak gentle. And this is why you have training like meditation and things like that to be able to help you knock down your cravings, desires, attachments, so that more and more you can speak gentle and create really wonderful relationships. Because you know when you spoken harsh, did it produce wholesome results or did it produce unwholesome results when you speak harsh to people? Unwholesome, right? You experience unwholesome karma. So that's what the Buddha is explaining to you. He's not giving you rules or commandments. He's showing you the wise decisions to make that is going to produce wholesome results in your life. And now this frivolous speech, what this is we also refer to it as idle chatter. This is unbeneficial or unpurposeful talk. If you've ever done things where you're like yada 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 yada, and you've done that, you're like broadcasting, right? You're not having a conversation. You're broadcasting, and people are like, "Oh my goodness, when are they going to be quiet? I just can't imagine. Why are they saying so many things?" So if you have craving in your mind, you might be yada 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 yada, just talking unpurposeful, unbeneficial stuff, right? So this is the first level of purification for your right speech, is eliminating lying, slander, harsh speech, and frivolous speech. And once you get all that worked out and you've eliminated that from your practice, then there's deeper teachings on speech that you would like to get to. And these are where other teachings of the Buddha plug into the Eightfold Path. There's a teaching called the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. And this is ultimately what you would like to get to, is that you're speaking with the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. This is where you speak at the proper time. What you say is true. You speak gently, beneficially, and with a mind of loving kindness. What speaking at the right time is that you're not interrupting people, right? Because when people interrupt you, do you like that? When people interrupt you, does it feel good? Right. So when you interrupt others, they're going to feel painful feelings because they have craving, right? And now they're going to experience painful feelings, attribute that to you, and now they're going to push you aside, right? And they're going to get angry and hostile and bitter with you. So if you speak at the right time where you're not interrupting someone, you'll have a much better conversation. The other part of speaking at the right time is making sure your mind is ready to speak. If you speak with anger in your mind, or you speak with frustration or agitation in your mind, the only thing that's going to come out is that anger, that agitation, that frustration. That's not the proper time to talk. So you need to be calm. If you can't be calm when you're talking, go somewhere else. Go calm down. Go for a walk. Go for a bike ride. Go do something else. It doesn't make sense to talk when you're angry and frustrated and agitated, because that's all that's going to come out. And now you're going to damage your relationship. And then the third aspect of speaking at the right time is making sure it's the right time for the other person. If you're living with a life partner, or you're living with a roommate or something like this, and say you get a notice in the mail that you guys forgot to pay your rent, and now you're going to be kicked out in 3 days if you don't pay this rent. Well, say you got this mail, and now your partner comes home from work, or your roommate comes home from work, and right away you jump on top of them and say, oh my goodness, we're going to get kicked out. We didn't pay our rent, right? Oh my goodness, this might be the wrong time for them to be talking with you, right? They just came home. Maybe they had a hard day at work. It might not be the right time. What would be more advisable is let them come home, put their bags down, take off their shoes, maybe get a glass of water, maybe get something to eat. Maybe they've rested a little bit. Maybe you check in with them. Hey, honey, how was your day at work today? Or, hey, roommate, how was your day at work today? And they're like, it was okay. I got something to talk with you about. Is this a good time? It's pretty important. No, it was a challenging day at work. It's probably better we talk about it tomorrow. Okay, no worries. If you don't have craving, you should be able to postpone it, because you can't do anything right now anyway. You can do it tomorrow, right? But if they say, yes, it's a good day, it's a good time to talk, then maybe you talk to them, right? So these are the three aspects of speaking at the right time: that you don't interrupt, that you ensure that your mind, that it's the proper time for your mind, and that it's the proper time for their mind. Sometimes you need to check in with the person and say, hey, is this a good time to talk with you? And then they're like, yes, this is a good time. So if you've ever had a boss, right, you don't just barge into their office and start talking to them. You usually knock, 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 knock. Is this a good time to chat? I have something I need to talk with you about, right? Or you might even schedule an appointment. So that ensures that that person's mind is ready to talk, right? So this is the first aspect of the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. The second one is saying truthful speech, or having truthful speech. We already talked about that as part of lying, that you're not going to lie. Speaking the truth. Part of speaking the truth is not having conspiracy theories and talking about things that you really don't know whether it's true or false, right? You would like to independently verify anything that it is that you're talking about, that you're not just sharing things that other people told you and you don't know whether it's the truth or not. So you need to accurately represent whatever it is that you're talking about. And if you've experienced it, then you know it's the truth. Whereas if you're just spreading things that you've heard from other people and you don't really know whether it's the truth or not, that's very unwise. So if you always speak the truth, your mind can be at ease, because you just look inward and be like, hey, what happened here? What did I experience? And then you talk about that. Whereas if you're talking about things that you don't really know about, then you're not speaking the truth. So it's wise to always speak the truth, and then your mind can be at ease. Speaking gentle, this is your tone, your tempo, and your word choice. This is covered in the Eightfold Path when the Buddha talks about refraining from harsh speech. So you would like to look at your tone, your tempo, and your word choice. And you're going to need to get better and better at that. But as you dial that in closer and closer, it gets easier and easier. When you first start, it might be challenging to have a proper tone, tempo, or word choice in all situations. But eventually, by the time you get to enlightenment, every single person you talk to, you can speak gentle. Right now, that's probably not the case, and that's why this is a practice. You're developing your life practice. You got to gradually dial this in closer and closer. Then speaking beneficially. This is like purposeful speech. This is eliminating the idle chatter, the yada, 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 right? That it's beneficial to the people you're talking with. So if you're speaking in unbeneficial ways, people are going to tune you out. You're not going to be very influential in your community and in your relationships and in your career and in your job. So you would like to speak in a beneficial way, not just self-serving speech about yourself, right? Because there is no self, right? So speak beneficially in a way that has purpose, not just about what's going on in your life, but have a conversation with this person. Leave space for other people to talk. And then the fifth one here is with a mind of loving kindness. This is that active goodwill, the genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. This is the very opposite of hate. If you're speaking with inner hate, this isn't going to go well in your relationships. So these 5 factors of well-spoken speech are a deeper level of understanding how to speak and how to communicate. While the Buddha called this right speech, because that's all there was during his lifetime was speech, we might refer to this as right communication, because we have much more than speech nowadays. We have emails, we have text messages, we have social media posts, we have lots of different ways to communicate. So it's any kind of communication. Because if you went into a job interview and you practiced right speech, they might feel really good about you. But then they get on your social media and they see you're aggressive and hostile and bitter with people, you probably won't get the job, right? So if you have all your communication everywhere, text messages, emails, all of this stuff, if you use these 5 factors of well-spoken speech, you'll be able to speak in wise ways. So if you're really angry and you go over to your email and you start pounding on the keyboard, there's nothing but hate's going to come out, right? And when you press send on that, it's just going to cause you issues, right? So you would like to even use the proper time to write your email, right? And if you need to, okay, write out your angry email, but just press save as draft. Don't send it, right? And then come back to it a couple hours later, a couple days later, reread it and with a calmer mind. And does it still make sense for you to send that email? Maybe not, if you wrote it through hate and through anger. So you would like to practice these in all your communication. What we're talking about here with your communication and with speech is establishing something that the Thai people call barami. That if you speak in this way, you'll establish barami. What barami is it means the one who people listen to. The Thai people call it barami. There's usually people in a village that have barami. And all the other villagers, if they have a problem or they have an issue, they go to those people. And these people have barami. They're the ones who people listen to. They're very successful in life. And when we say successful in life, we don't mean financially successful. What we mean is they have successful relationships. That's what it means to be successful in Thailand, is that you have successful relationships, right? So if you're very conducive and harmonious with your relationships in your life, in the village and in your career and in your job, people know that you're speaking wisely and you're really good at developing wholesome relationships. So people will come to you and they'll ask for advice about their life. And these people who have barami, they're very influential in their community. So you can establish barami in your household, in your family, in your community, in your profession, in your job. Establishing barami means you're the one who people listen to, but you can't establish that in one day or 1 week or 1 month. You're going to need to practice these 5 factors of well-spoken speech continuously with all the people around you. And now you will be very influential in your community and you will have barami. Okay, so this is right speech. If you look in the book, the very first book, volume 1, in chapter 5 is where I teach the Eightfold Path, and I go through it in detail, and I speak about all of right speech in detail. This is just a little bit of it, but I actually go through in detail each one of these 5 factors and explaining it and giving examples for you to be able to understand it. So while I just explained it to you here in class, you have the text to go back to and revisit multiple times to be able to help you. But if you can't remember any of those things that I just shared from the Buddha, you might remember to be polite, kind, friendly, and respectful. If you can remember that, be polite, kind, friendly, and respectful in all your communication. You're not interested in any negative relationships whatsoever, not even the slightest negative relationship. Even when you check out at the cashier at 7-Eleven, you have a 30-second relationship with that person. You would like it to be a wonderful relationship. You smile at them, they smile at you, you politely hand them your things, you politely hand them the money, you say, have a wonderful day, have a great day, and now you're off to the next thing, right? You're not having any disgruntled relationships anywhere. There should be no space in your life for any hostility, any bitterness, or anything like that. But understand that you're going to need to gradually work up to that. So being polite, kind, friendly, and respectful will be able to help you do that in all forms of communication. Then there's something called right action. This is the fourth step of the Eightfold Path. Here the Buddha says, in what, monks, is right action? Refraining from taking life, refraining from taking what is not given, refraining from sexual misconduct. This is called right action. So the Buddha is giving you three major actions that if you did these things, it would cause harm, and then this harm is going to come back to you. So if you're killing, if you're stealing, or you're having sexual misconduct, this is causing harm to others, and now this harm is going to come back to you. So you would like to eliminate all harm through your bodily actions. But notice the Buddha doesn't say, don't walk up to somebody and punch them in the face. Right? He doesn't say that here. And the reason why is that he can't give you an exhaustive list of every last little bodily action that's going to cause harm. So if you understand what right action is it's not causing harm through your bodily actions. He didn't say, don't drag your suitcase through the aisle of a plane and run over people's feet and hit them in the knees, because planes didn't exist during his lifetime, right? So he didn't say that. But if you understand what right action is, then you understand not to cause harm through your bodily actions, and you wouldn't walk through the airplane and drag your suitcase through the aisle and run over people's feet. You know that's unwise, right? Because people are going to get hostile, they're going to get aggressive with you. So here he's giving you three major things: killing, stealing, and sexual misconduct. And we're going to explore these tonight when we talk about the 5 precepts. I'm going to go in detail about these because the Buddha expands these for you. Remember, the Eightfold Path is a core central teaching where other teachings plug into it. So the 5 precepts plug in here, where he gives you much more illuminating language than this. Right here, it's just very general. Refrain from taking life, refrain from taking what is not given, refrain from sexual misconduct. But he explains these in more detail in his other teachings. And I usually like to point out here when we talk about sexual misconduct that this doesn't include same-gender relationships. Sometimes when people see this, that the Buddha taught to eliminate sexual misconduct, they might say, hey, does that include same-gender relationships? No, he didn't teach that same-gender relationships are harmful. And the reason why is because if you have 2 loving, consenting adults, whether they're a male and a female, or a male and a male, or a female and a female, they're not causing harm to anybody. It's loyal, loving, consenting adults having sex with each other. What you're going to see when he talks about sexual misconduct is it's harmful sexual misconduct, like having sex with minors, going outside of your relationships, having sex without consent, things like this. So he's going to expand this for you further, but I would like to just give you a heads up about this sexual misconduct. If you understand the universal truth of impermanence, then you understand why the Buddha didn't teach that same-gender relationships would be harmful. Well, first of all, they're just 2 loyal, loving, consenting adults that are choosing to have sex. They're not causing harm to anybody. But secondly, then you understand through the universal truth of impermanence that it's not possible for every male to be interested in having sex with a female. And it's also not possible for every female to be interested in having sex with a male. If that was true, that would be permanence. If every man was interested in having sex with a female, that would be permanence. But we live in an impermanent world. And if every female was interested in having sex with a male, that would be permanence. But we understand the universal truth of impermanence. So there's no way that ever in history that every man or every woman is going to have sex with the opposite gender. It just isn't going to happen. It didn't happen during the lifetime of the Buddha, and it's not happening now. The Buddha was aware of same-gender relationships. He talks about it in his teachings. He talks about males who don't identify with masculine qualities. He talks about females who don't identify with feminine qualities. And this is where the universal truth of impermanence can help you again. Because if you understand that the body is one thing and the mind is another thing, then you can understand that an individual's mind can come into a body that has male sexual organs, but their mind can identify as female. This is normal. Right? This is what we might refer to as a transgender individual. This is completely normal, because if you think about the mind, it's not possible for every single mind that is in a male body to identify as male. That would be permanence, right? Or every single body that is female sexual organs to identify as a female. This isn't possible. This would be permanence. And if you understand the cycle of rebirth, that we've all been other beings in the past, then we've all been different genders at different times. So maybe when we were lizards, you and I were sisters, perhaps, right? We were sisters. Or maybe when we were monkeys, you were my father and I was your daughter, right? So we were different genders at different times. So a mind coming into this life with a male physical organs as the body, the mind could be identifying as a female because it was female in other lives. And now it came into this life and it's still identifying as a female. So individuals who prefer same-gender relationships or transgender individuals, this is all completely normal and fully explained through the natural laws of existence. The challenge is that there's people in the world that have craving, desire, attachment. They want every male to have sex with a female, and they want every female to have sex with a male. And when their craving doesn't get fulfilled, their anger arises, their hate arises. And where is that all coming from? The ignorance, the unknowing of true reality. Remember we were talking last night? Craving, anger, and ignorance? That's where it's coming from. Is they're craving everybody that has a male body to identify as male, or everybody who has a female body to identify as female. When that craving doesn't get fulfilled, they get angry. And they get hateful, perhaps, and bitter and hostile. And then where that's coming from is the unknowing of true reality, that ignorance or delusion or confusion. But you can have wisdom and you can understand, like, yeah, this is completely normal. And no reason to hate people because of their choice of gender or their choice of clothing or who they choose to love and who they choose to have a relationship with. No need to hate anybody whatsoever, right? So this is right action, and we're going to explore this in more detail when we get to the 5 precepts this evening. And the Buddha gives you much more detail on this. There's other actions that he talks about in other parts of his teachings as well, like substances that cause heedlessness. You're going to learn about that this evening when we talk about the 5 precepts. He even talks about gambling, because these things are exactly opposite of what your goal is on the path to enlightenment. If you're gambling, there's a certain craving for money. The mind is longing and yearning. I want money, I want money, I want money. And you're playing some game in order to try to acquire that money. And you're just allowing the craving to continue. And then when you lose your money, you're not going to be able to sustain your life, because now you can't provide for the basic necessities of your life. So he's teaching you to eliminate gambling so that you can then use the income and the resources that you have in order to sustain your life and apply that to your basic necessities. So if you go in a situation where you're gambling, oftentimes there's drugs, there's alcohol, there's weapons, there's a lot of unwholesome things that are going on in those environments, and you can be affected by that, right? So if you make the wise decision to not gamble, then any money that you earn, you can use it for your basic necessities, and you're not in the environment where there's fights, there's arguments, there's guns, there's drugs, there's all kinds of other things that are typically going on in those kinds of environments. Then there's what's called right livelihood. This is the the 5th step of the Eightfold Path. This is where you're learning about how you sustain your life should not cause harm to others. So let me read it to you and then I'll teach it to you. The Buddha says, "In what, monks, is right livelihood? Here, monks, the noble disciple, having given up wrong livelihood, keeps himself by right livelihood." So he just talks very general and very broad in the Eightfold Path. But then he has these other teachings to help you understand how to practice right livelihood, where you're not causing harm through your livelihood. What a livelihood is how you choose to sustain your life in the world, how you apply certain time, effort, and energy towards making money or having a career and sustaining your life. So here in this teaching, this is the first part of right livelihood. In the Eightfold Path, he's just talking about it generally, but underneath of this line, here he's giving you 5 livelihoods that would cause harm to other beings, and therefore this harm is going to come back to you. Here's where he talks about that one should eliminate business and weapons, living beings, meat, substances that cause heedlessness, and poisons. If you have a livelihood in any of these 5 things, it's causing harm to others. So you're sustaining your life off of causing harm to other people. And you can independently verify these. So let's just take one of them, because we won't have time to go through all 5, but you can go through all 5 if you like. I've done that, but let's just take one of them. Let's take substances that cause heedlessness. I'll show you how to independently reflect on this. If I was on the street corner selling cocaine or heroin or crystal meth, I'm putting this poison into the community. And now these people are getting addicted to this substance. And now they're going out and stealing and robbing to get money and give this money to me. And I'm causing harm in this community by selling this drug or substance into the community. Well, now me standing on the street corner, I can get beat up, I can get robbed, I can get murdered, I can go to jail. And then once I'm in jail, same thing, get beat up, get murdered, get, all kinds of difficulties once you're in jail and you're in prison, right? So this is the harm coming back to me for my unwise decision. But when you have wisdom, then you understand that it would be very unwise for you to go out there on the street corner and sell substances that cause heedlessness. But remember, this is the natural law of Gamma. This is a much higher law than the human laws. Human laws are oftentimes imperfect because they're created by human beings. So your government could tell you that, yeah, you can go be a cashier at that liquor store. Go ahead. That's legal. You're not going to get arrested for that, right? The government's not going to put you in jail for maybe being a cashier at a liquor store. But then you look at what happens at liquor stores. We've got customers coming who are very drunk and very intoxicated. Oftentimes you're going to need to be dealing with these types of clientele. They could have guns, they could have knives, they could beat you up, they could rob you, they could murder you, right? Oftentimes places that sell liquor and alcohol, they get robbed, and people there sometimes get murdered. People get beat up. And this is because of the natural law of Gamma, of cause and effect, or action and result. Again, your government might make it legal for you to work at that liquor store, but if you understand the natural law of Gamma, you might think twice about whether it would be wise to work at that liquor store or not, because the natural law of Gamma is a much higher law than what's going on in the government. So the government could tell you that it's legal to go work at this liquor store. You could mop floors, you could stock the shelves, you could be a cashier, but you need to ask yourself, would it really be wise for you to do that based on what you know about the natural law of Gamma? So you're going to need to look at this and reflect on it, not through the laws of the government, but through the natural laws of existence and what truly transpires in the world. So you can independently verify all of these. Then the Buddha gives some additional information on right livelihood. He explains to you about how to conduct your livelihood. He talks about scheming, flattering, hinting, belittling, pursuing gain with gain, that this would be wrong livelihood. This is how you conduct your livelihood. So for example, I could be a politician. This isn't one of those 5 livelihoods that we just talked about, right? It's not business and weapons, business and living beings, business and meat, business and substances that cause heedlessness, and business and poisons. It's not one of those 5. But if I was a politician and I was scheming, if I was corrupt, and now 15 years into my career, 20 years into my career, I get found out, people probably aren't going to reelect me, right? And now I'm going to have difficulty sustaining my life, making money, because I've based my career on this work as a politician, and I've been corrupt all these years, and now I get found out, and now I can't get reelected, and now my family doesn't have the money to be able to eat and sustain their life. So the Buddha is giving you guidance about how to conduct your livelihood in a way that's going to be wise for you, so that you can sustain your life long term and be able to be at ease when you practice your livelihood. Flattery, what this is like insincere comments just to get people to buy things from you. So if you were like a salesperson, or you were a business owner or something like this, and you were like flattering people just to get them to buy things from you, they're going to see through that. And now your customers are going to know that, and they're going to be less and less likely to buy things from you. So if you're insincere in your flattery to customers just to get them to purchase things, or maybe your business partners or something like this, or your coworkers, this would be unwise. Hinting, this is like not being clear and direct. Like say you're on a project team and you needed to You and the 4 or 5 members of your project team needed to go in and brief your boss about this project. And maybe you've done a certain amount of work on your project and you're saying, yeah, boss, I did my work, but I don't know about Barbara. I'm not sure what she did. I got all my work done. I didn't see what Barbara did, right? Like you're just kind of like hinting, like thinking and kind of like calling Barbara out for maybe not doing her work. Just be clear and direct. Hey, boss, this is what I did. Here's what I was able to accomplish. Here you go, right? You don't need to bring all this other stuff into it. And then the next thing here is belittling. This is like talking down to somebody, degrading somebody, diminishing somebody, whether it's your coworkers, whether it's your competition, whether it's your business partners, anybody that you're belittling or talking down to, this is going to look bad for you in your career. So in your career, you would like to be positive and uplifting. If you don't have something good to say, just don't say anything at all. No need to belittle your competition, because your customers, when you're interacting with a customer, if you're belittling your competition, this looks really bad for you. And now people aren't going to be willing to do business with you, because people do business with people. They don't do business with businesses. They do business with people. So when you're in your career, or if you're an entrepreneur, or you're somehow working and you're interacting with customers, they're doing business with you as a person. And if you're belittling your competition or your coworkers or your business partners, this is going to look really bad for you, and people aren't going to be interested in doing business with you, and you're not going to be able to sustain your career. What pursuing gain with gain is this is like just taking a job for the sake of taking a job just to get a paycheck, that you don't really care about the product, you don't really care about the service, you just show up to get the paycheck and that's it. And if you did this, you're only taking this job based in craving for money, right? The mind just wants this money, and you're just showing up to get this money. And you're probably going to feel like it's a dead-end job. You're going to feel unmotivated, unenthused. Maybe you like the money at first, and it's really great that you're getting this money, but eventually that craving is going to be extinguished, and now you're going to be left with doing this work in a service or selling a product that you really don't care about, and you don't have any enthusiasm or motivation to do. By the time you purify your livelihood, you'll get to a point where you're enjoying the work that you're doing so well that you're really motivated and enthused to do that work, that you can't imagine doing anything else whatsoever, that you enjoy this work so much. But if you've ever had a job where you didn't enjoy the work, you might feel like you dragged yourself to work each day, you're not going to be able to get to a peaceful and joyful life or a peaceful and joyful mind, because you're unmotivated, you're unenthused to go to work each day. So you would like to get to a point where you enjoy the work that you're doing so well that even if you didn't get paid for it, you would still do that work. Of course, you need payment. You need to sustain your life. So you're going to need some kind of income to buy food and water and clothing and shelter and medical care and things like this. But you would like to select a livelihood that even if you didn't get paid for it, you would still do it. You enjoy it that much, right? That's where you get to a fully purified livelihood. So here the Buddha is giving you some guidance on right livelihood. And this is what we call the first fold of purification. That if you're in a livelihood and you're not practicing one of these 5, and you're also practicing these where you're not doing scheming, flattering, hinting, belittling, pursuing gain with gain, you've purified the first fold of your livelihood. There's a second fold of purification with your livelihood that I have in volume 12, chapter 14. If you look in volume 12, chapter 14, it'll show you how to fully purify your livelihood. It has these teachings, but it also has other teachings too that you need to purify your livelihood. So if you're looking to change jobs, you might decide to go look at that chapter. Or if you're unemployed right now and you're looking to get a job, you might decide to go look at that chapter. You can either get it from our website by downloading it, or we have the books here where you can get them on Amazon, or you can even take them and go print them from the downloaded file. So volume 12, chapter 14 is where it has the full teachings of the Buddha on purification of your livelihood. And this will help you when you're changing jobs, or you're in between jobs looking for a new job, or maybe you're unemployed right now and you would like to get a new job. This would be an ideal teaching for you to learn at that particular time. Okay, so this is right livelihood. So now just to summarize, right speech is no harm through all verbal communication, all verbal conduct. You would like all your communications, such as verbal, text, chat, post, emails, all of this should be harmless. Using the 5 factors of well-spoken speech ultimately is what you'd like to get to. But you might need to practice that first layer of right speech first, where you practice eliminating lying, slander, harsh speech, and frivolous speech. If you have any of those going on right now, get rid of those first, purify that, get rid of that, and then start working on the 5 factors of well-spoken speech in all your different relationships so that all your communication is harmless. Then right action is not causing harm through your bodily actions. All your bodily actions should be harmless, right? You're not interested in causing any harm through your bodily actions. Then right livelihood is ensuring that you're not causing any harm through the decisions that you make in order to sustain your life. So the way you choose to sustain your life should be harmless. And the Buddha is giving you guidance on that. So it's important to ensure you're not causing harm to others in the way that you sustain your life and maintain your life. Because any harm you put out is just going to come back to you. This is the natural law of karma. So any questions on the moral conduct section? Mm-hmm.
About the right speech, what about like harsh speech with jokes? Like that you say a joke gently maybe, but the word choice is not the best one?
Yeah, even when you joke, it's wise to practice the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. You're going to see a teaching this evening where the Buddha talks about this. He says, even when he tells a joke, he doesn't tell a lie.
Yeah.
You might not associate with a Buddha as telling jokes, but a Buddha has a personality, right? They have a character. They're going to tell jokes. So even when you're telling jokes, you're not interested in being harsh or aggressive or diminishing. Sometimes when people tell jokes, they diminish other people or they diminish themselves. This is very unwise. It's more challenging to tell jokes that are uplifting and positive and that don't tell lies, but that's where your wisdom needs to kick in. You need to bring your wisdom up to be able to tell jokes in such a way that it doesn't diminish other people, it doesn't diminish yourself, it doesn't have lies. So it'll be more challenging for you to do this initially, but once you start doing it, it becomes more natural. But usually those jokes are more funny, the ones that are actually take a lot of time for you to develop your wisdom to tell this joke. So if you do that, you'll notice that people will relate to you more readily. Whereas if you're diminishing people, even as a joke, or you're talking harshly, then people are going to see that about your speech, and it's going to affect your relationships with people.
And about lying, like if you want to make a surprise to someone, or like if a kid believes in Santa Claus.
Oh, Santa Claus, is that what you said? Okay. So some people talk about these as like white lies, right? Like a kind of an innocent lie, but there's no such thing as a non-harmful lie. You would always like to tell the truth in all situations. And there's ways to tell the truth without lying. Like one of the examples students oftentimes ask me is they say, okay, well, if I was at home and somebody came running in my house and telling me that somebody's trying to murder them and they were hiding under my bed, and now the murderer comes into my door and knocks on the door and says, hey, is such and such at my house? What am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to tell the truth? Well, the answer is you should always tell the truth, but that doesn't mean you have to expose that somebody's under your bed hiding. Telling the truth is just not telling a deliberate lie. So if a murderer showed up at my house, for example, and said, hey, I'm trying to find this person, where are they? I would say, oh, are you looking for that person? Where are they? Have you seen them? And they're like, no, that's what I'm asking you. Oh, okay, well, maybe you should look over there. Right? And maybe go look in the woods. Maybe they're over there. Right? So I'm not going to expose that the person's in my house. So telling the truth doesn't mean you tell them everything you know. That's not what telling the truth is. Or say, for example, this is another common question people ask me about, is like, say you live with a partner and your partner and you are going out for a night out and you're wearing certain clothes and your partner says, hey, how do I look, honey? And then people feel like they should say, you don't look so good. Like you should change that. I don't suggest you do that. And I also don't suggest you say, oh, you look great, when perhaps you think that they don't look so great. This person has chosen to wear certain clothing and they've chosen to purchase this clothing. They obviously like it. And what they're looking for is confidence. They don't really have confidence in the way that they look. So rather than say, oh, you don't look good, or, oh, you don't look so great, you should change that, this is going to diminish their confidence. But then also not telling a lie and saying, oh, you look so great, you look beautiful. You probably aren't interested in saying that either. I would say things like, I enjoy spending time with you no matter what you wear. Let's just go out and have a good time. Or something like that, right? Or you could say, you know what? I think your smile is beautiful. I enjoy spending time with you no matter what you wear. Let's go have a good time. You look beautiful with that smile, right? You don't need to tell them about how they look and how they appear and all these kinds of things. That's just reinforcing personal existence view. So you can tell the truth without sharing everything you know. And this becomes very skillful, that you need to be skillful in the way that you speak.
Like if you want to make a surprise to someone.
Oh yeah, surprise, and Santa Claus too, right?
Yeah.
So if you're doing a surprise for somebody, you can do that without telling a lie. I'll give you an example. My son just left from a school and they were throwing a going away party for him, and they told me, and they said they would like to keep it a surprise. And then somehow my son got wind of it. I think he heard me and my wife talking about it, and he said to me, Dad, I already know you and Mom are throwing me a going away party for going away from my old school. And I said to him, I can tell you with 100% certainty, Mom and Dad are not throwing you a going away party, because it wasn't us. It was his friends that were doing it. We didn't organize it at all. It was them doing it. He goes, I just heard you and Mom talking about a going away party, and that's for me, right? And I was like, me and Mom are not throwing you a going away party. I can tell you that 100% certainty, right? So then on the way, it was like a month later when we needed to go to the party, and I was the person bringing him to the party. We were going to this place, and it's a place that he normally goes to. And on our way in, I was kind of joking with him a little bit. I said, you've been away from that school now for a few days. Your friends probably haven't even called you, have they? He's like, yeah, they haven't called me. I was like, do you think they care about you? Do you think your friends care about you? And he's like, nah, they probably don't even care about me that I'm gone. And then we walked into the business, and he said, hold on, there's my friend Marco. There's my friend Lucas. Hey, what are they doing here? And he started seeing all his friends, and he kind of perked up a little bit. So I was trying to see if his mind was attached to his friends. And then he saw his friends, and he was surprised. But he never at any time came back to me and said, Dad, you lied to me. You guys threw a going away party for me, because he knew that his friends did it. It wasn't me. It wasn't his mom. So you can have a party like this without telling people what you're doing. You can kind of say something else, like I did in this example. And then with Santa Claus, I don't suggest you tell people about Santa Claus, because it's a lie. I remember growing up believing in Santa Claus. I found out about when I was 8 years old that Santa Claus didn't exist. I was crushed. I understood that my parents had lied to me for all these years. And, that's really unfortunate for a child to grow up realizing their parents are lying. And then what you're trying to teach your child is to not lie. So if you lie, but yet you're teaching your children to not lie, they're going to look at you and be like, hold on a second, you're teaching me not to lie, but yet you lie. So you would like to practice the same things that you're teaching your children. So if you lie about Santa Claus and then you're teaching them not to lie, there's a conflict in their mind. And now you're going to see your children lie, because that's what you're teaching them through your actions. You teach a whole lot more through your actions than you do your speech. So you would like your actions to be wise. And if you're not lying and you practice what I'm sharing here with you, your children will learn that same kind of thing. So if you currently have children and you have lied to them about Santa Claus, it's wise to just sit down with them and tell them the truth and take responsibility for it. Tell them that you've learned new things. And even though in the past you've told them about Santa Claus, you now realize this is unwise and you're now choosing to do something else and you've made a mistake. This is very good to do with a child, is let them know when you've made a mistake, because then when you do that with them and you can be very honest with them, they're going to learn that when they make mistakes, they can come to you and tell you that they've made mistakes too, and they'll get that example from you. So it's very unwise to tell that story and lie and those kinds of things. Instead, teach your child that yes, we do give presents at Christmas time, and this is a practice of generosity. And the reason why we do this is to eliminate our craving, desire, attachment, and show people our care. And then you can teach them that type of thing, which is actually wholesome, rather than this fake story about Santa Claus. You have a question? If you press the button, just wait a second when the light comes on.
Working?
Yep.
Yes. Okay. With right livelihood and the idea of not having a job that brings you joy, there are, I would probably say, the majority of people in work do not get joy from their job.
Do not get joy from their job?
Yeah, office workers, from office workers to, I don't know, even I'm thinking at the moment of being in Nepal and seeing people doing really, really hard jobs, and they're doing it to support their family, not because they're craving money, but because they're trying to support their family. So how does that work?
Yeah, so you're not interested in getting joy because of your job. That would be a conditioned feeling. You get happy because of this job. And now when you don't have that job anymore, now you're not happy. So you would like to get to a point where you don't have craving, desire, attachment in the way that you choose to sustain your life, but you just thoroughly enjoy this work you're doing intrinsically, right? That is just there, right? So I haven't been to Nepal. It doesn't sound like they're practicing the teachings as closely as here in Thailand. If you notice, here in Thailand, the people can just do a very simple, basic job and they just thoroughly enjoy it. They love every single aspect of what they're doing. In fact, when I first moved to Thailand, I started a business, I started a company, and I was hiring people to do this work. And I had this job that was a really high salary. It was way more. It was like 5 or 10 times more than the average Thai salary. And there was this one particular person that I thought would be really great at the job. I offered it to him. He turned it down. I was surprised because it was so much money. And I asked him why. And he said, he's like, I'm happy with the job that I'm doing. I really enjoy it. And this is what supports my family. I'm really good at it. And I don't think that I would be happy and enjoy doing that work that you're offering. He said, but you know what? I'll find you somebody that will. I'll find a friend that's interested in doing that work. So he did. He found an employee for me to help me. So here in Thailand, you'll see people that thoroughly enjoy their work. And this is why you get such great service when you're in Thailand, when you go to restaurants and stores and stuff, because they really enjoy the work that they do. And that's what you would like to ultimately get to, is where you're not happy because of your job, but you're just already joyful. And this is kind of an extension of your practice, that you go do this particular work because you just thoroughly enjoy what you're doing, that you're not happy because of the work, but you're just happy in general. You're just unconditioned happiness, unconditioned joy. And then you can do this work long term. But you also understand that this job is impermanent, that at any point you could potentially lose that job, potentially, but then you at least know what it is that really makes this mind tick. That's what you're ultimately getting to on this path to enlightenment, is you're on this journey to train your mind and uproot the pollutions out of the mind, but you're also on this journey to understand this mind and what really makes it tick. What is it that's really going to motivate you and feel encouraged throughout your life? So I'll give you an example from my life, is that when I went to college, I took this career class and they were trying to help you figure out what job that would be good for you. And at the end of this career class, I decided I was either going to be a police officer or like a social worker, like a therapist. And that was what I thought I would like to do because I really enjoyed helping people at that time. And that's what I was thinking. Well, ultimately, I ended up deciding to do computers and go to school for computers because I wanted money. I had craving for money. So I went into the computer field and I worked for 7.5 years. But eventually, towards the end of that career, I really felt burnt out and I didn't like it anymore, because the only reason is I was doing it for the money. I didn't, and I was always very successful at it because I really enjoyed helping people. What really motivated me was not the money, but that's what the bosses wanted us to focus on, was the money. I was always focused on the people. So the employees that were working for me, I was always helping them develop their careers and things like this. So I always had lots of people that were willing to work with me. But then ultimately the money didn't satisfy me, so I went to opening my own company. And I opened a company where we were doing massage, and I was teaching people how to do massage. And this was really enjoyable. I really enjoyed this work. But there was still a lot of money coming in. I was making a lot of money. But ultimately, what I ended up getting to after opening another company here in Thailand where I was helping people is I got rid of all of that, and I decided I would like to share the teachings of the Buddha, because this is what I really enjoy doing. And I would do this without even getting paid for it, which I don't, right? I just accept donations. If people choose to donate, fine. If they don't, that's fine too. So all the way at the beginning, I kind of figured out what I really wanted to do, which was help people. But the pollution of my mind got in the way, and this cravings came up, and it took me down this other path, which was helpful because I learned technology and those kinds of things. But what you would like to get to a right livelihood is where you get all your pollution out of your mind, and you're doing something that you thoroughly enjoy, and you would do it whether or not you got paid for it or not. Let me give you another example. Say in the same example, say somebody wants to be a police officer. They have a craving to be a police officer, and say that their ego is involved and they really just want to do it because of the power. That doesn't mean every police officer has ego. Let's just say for this example, right, that somebody has ego and they want power and they decide to go be a police officer. And now they're being a police officer and they're having to rough people up. They're beating them up. They're maybe putting guns to them, and they're having to hurt people in order to lock them up and arrest them. Well, now maybe they're practicing these teachings, they're training their mind, their pollution's coming down, and what they realize is this career actually isn't what they're interested in doing. By the time they get closer and closer to enlightenment, they realize what they truly enjoy is being a person that can help others. And maybe they decide to stop being a police officer because they don't like the aggression and the hostility, and they decide to be a social worker or a therapist. And that's what they truly enjoy doing, is helping people. So this is where, like, you can get on the path to enlightenment and you can have a certain career, but then as you're eliminating your pollutions, you might notice that you switch careers and do something completely different, because now your ego is gone and you've dissolved your ego, and what's left is that you really enjoy helping people, and you find a career to do that. And that's would be a right livelihood, because now you just thoroughly enjoy it. You have enthusiasm and motivation, and you would do it even if you didn't get paid for it.
Just about lying, I think that we talked about perhaps gross level lying, and I think myself, from my own experience and female friends of mine in relationships, there's a lot of lying that goes on that's compromise in a relationship, where women, and I say women because that's what I know, are not fulfilled in a relationship, but they have children, they have responsibilities, they have a husband, and so they just continue in this unfulfilling situation. Mm-hmm. And so I feel that that's a way, a form of lying, because they're not being truthful about how they feel and what they're perhaps called to do. They're just subduing themselves and staying in that role. So I don't know what you have to say.
Yeah, this path is always about your own practice. This isn't about teaching other people. Like you talked about Nepal and people doing jobs that they don't particularly like. That's their decision. And they're experiencing the results of those decisions, that they don't feel motivated and encouraged in their job. So if you have friends that are not being true and honest to their own feelings, that's their life, that's their decisions, and they experience the results. So where you see those things going on, that's for them to deal with and them to experience. But for you, you practice in a way that the Buddha is teaching, and that's where you get to peacefulness.
Not so much that. It's the women stay in these situations because of the children, because of the family, and is this tension between the role they play for others and their own needs. And it's a really hard position to be in for a woman to go, well, you know, this is not fulfilling for me, when they have children and they have family that they need to care for.
But that's for them to sort out, right? That's not for you to sort out.
No, I've sorted mine out.
They've got to sort that out. And if they've got craving or clinging that's keeping them in that relationship and in that lifestyle, that's the results of their decisions. So you would like to sort out your mind and sort out your life, and then whatever they do is up to them. Yep.
To come back on the question of the lady, can you be ambitious and practice the teachings?
Yes, that's part of the teachings. So in the 7 factors of enlightenment, I think we were talking about it the other day, about the enlightenment factor of energy. So if you were craving, if you were longing and yearning and chasing after something, that's not going to lead to peacefulness. But if you were indifferent and you could care less and you were dull and lethargic and complacent, that's not going to lead to peacefulness and joy either. So the middle way is to have ambition, to have motivation, to have enthusiasm, but doing that without craving, desire, attachment. And this is where you need to be able to see the difference, that you can be enthused and motivated and encouraged without craving, desire, attachment. So I'll give you an example from my life. So like last retreat, this particular retreat, when I planned it, I planned these different excursions. And one of the places that I planned to go was an elephant sanctuary, not the same one we're going to today, but a different one. And when I planned it, I was like, great, this is the elephant sanctuary that I know. It'll be a great time. People are interested in seeing elephants. So we went out to this place. And when we went out there, the place was closed, right? So I had the enthusiasm, I had the ambition, I had the motivation to organize this thing. But then when we showed up, it was closed. If I had a craving, I would have been disappointed, or I would have been frustrated or agitated. But because it was just something that I was enthused, I was motivated, I was encouraged to put together this excursion, then I know there's going to be impermanence along the way, right? So you can be enthused, you can be motivated, you can have ambition. The Buddha had lots of enthusiasm and motivation. For 45 years, he shared his teachings. But he did it without craving, desire, attachment. If you have craving, desire, attachment, you're going to be pushing. You're going to be almost obsessive about a particular thing. And oftentimes you're making unwise decisions because it's all based in selfish desires. And now when you're putting that together, it's going to fall apart. It's like a house of cards. If you've ever done anything with craving, desire, attachment, and you've built it up, like a business or something like this, it can just fall down like a house of cards because you don't have wise decision making as part of what you were doing. So if you come to the middle where you're encouraged, you're motivated, you're enthused, you have that ambition, the willingness to do something, but you get rid of the craving, desire, attachment, you're going to build it more slowly, more methodically, in a more solid way. And now it can be sustaining. And that's what you would ultimately like to get to. Where you're not indifferent, you're not complacent, but you're not chasing after things either, but pursuing things as a goal, objective, or interest. See if we have any other questions. Oh, yes, Junko. For those of you guys online, if you guys have any questions, you can put them into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom. Or in Zoom, you can raise your hand and ask any questions that you like. Yes, sir.
Thank you. So about the library food, so the Buddha said so we should choose the harmful job. Mm-hmm. So and then so somehow it comes out me about the butcher. So but considering our kind of food, so maybe the meat is really kind of the important part for a lot of people. So some people choose the kind of vegetable, but some people really can't live without meat. So, so we can't blame those people, the butcher, and then the people who really like meat. But so the Buddha teaching means so we shouldn't choose like a butcher as a livelihood.
Yeah, if you're a butcher, that means that you're killing or someone else is killed in order for you to now sell this product. So if you're practicing the teaching of right livelihood, you wouldn't be a butcher and sell meat.
So in the Muslim people have a halal food, so they distinguish this meat and that meat. But maybe so I'm not so sure. All the monks can't eat, or some monks can eat. Maybe it depends on the region or country. So, but the Buddha said, maybe not maybe, don't kill.
I think they're either turned off or the batteries ran out. Yeah. So if you think about things as what the monks can and can't do, this sounds like rules, right? Like you're following a bunch of rules. But if you get in touch with what the Buddha is teaching you, is he's teaching you how to eliminate these pollutions of your mind. So one of the pollutions in the mind is that central desire and the ill will. Those are the fourth and fifth fetters. And you're working to eliminate the central desire and the ill will. Well, if you're out there killing, there's a certain amount of ill will in the mind to be able to kill, even like a mosquito, right? Like, there's a certain amount of ill will and hatred when you're, trying to kill that mosquito. So if you're learning to blow the mosquito off or blow it off of you or swipe it off of you, if you're learning to transition your food intake to a plant-based food supply, and whether you do that or not is your choice, but by doing so, you're practicing loving kindness and compassion. You're eliminating the anger, hatred, and ill will out of your mind so that now you can be more loving and kind with animals and human beings and all these different beings around you. And as a result of that, you'll notice that your relationships will improve, and you'll notice the health of your body will improve too, because when you're eating meat, you're also eating drugs and hormones and toxins that are in the animal, because that gets picked up through farmers that are putting those drugs and toxins into the animal. So when you're eating animal flesh, you're not just eating the flesh, you're eating all these drugs, hormones, and toxins too. And even wild animals, they've taken wild fish out of streams and they found cocaine and heroin and antidepressants and all this in their flesh, because human beings have been flushing that into the toilet, and now it's polluted our streams, and the fish are picking that up in their flesh. So when you're eating that, it's affecting the health of the body and it's affecting the health of your mind. So when you clean up your food supply, you'll notice improvement to the health of the body and health of the mind. This is the wise decision that's leading to the wholesome result. So if you practice this, you'll be able to see the truth for yourself. But when or if you ever choose to move to a plant-based food supply is each individual's choice. No one's ever going to force you to do that or convince you to do that. And in doing so, there are some people, because of this being kind of the first generation that's really moving back to a plant-based food supply, that are going to probably have challenges with that. There's going to be some people that probably are going to need to eat a little bit of meat because their body isn't able to fully move over to a plant-based food supply, even with supplements and things like this. One of the things that can help you see the truth in this is that human beings used to be plant-based eaters. You can see that from our teeth. Our teeth are very similar to a horse and a cow. If you look at horse teeth and cow's teeth, our teeth are almost exactly the same. They're identical. And those animals eat plants. We only moved to eating meat out of necessity because we started running out of plants as we became more and more populous. So we started being scavengers, where we ran away lions and tigers and things like this, and we took over their kill. But then we became so populous that we started to learn how to do organized hunting, and we started hunting ourselves. But then we became so populous, we needed to start doing manufactured farming, where we started manufacturing animals and producing animals that way. So now what's happening is more and more human beings are figuring out that this meat is causing us harm and it's causing the environment harm. So people are starting to move to a plant-based food supply. But because we're the first generation to do this, there's going to be some people that have a lot of challenges with this based on B12 and other minerals and stuff like this. So what you would like to do is clean up your food supply as best as possible, because then you give the body and the mind the best environment to be healthy. And this would be a wise decision that leads to wholesome results for you. Because the longer your life is, the more time you have to get to enlightenment. If you have a shorter lifespan, you don't have as much time to get to enlightenment. So you'd like to elongate your lifespan as much as you can so that you have more and more time to be able to get to enlightenment. And by making wise choices about your food intake, that's what's going to help you to extend your life. Can you use the mic for the people online? We have one right here. We have
Thank
more
you.
batteries as well.
So we should know the wise choose. So the cause and effect. So we should also kind of respect those people who has who are butcher as a living food, livelihood. So they make money. So but anyway, so the world might shift to the kind of plant-based food concept maybe in the future.
Yeah, as more and more human beings move to plant-based food supply, you'll see that less and less people will be interested in being a butcher because they know they can't make a living that way.
Yeah.
But over the course of multiple generations, people are going to need to gradually move to a plant-based food supply if they would like to see the environment be healthy, if they'd like to see their body be healthy. And then as we do that, you'll see that people's livelihoods will shift. But that's a choice that each individual needs to make on their own. It's not something that anyone's going to tell them to do or force them to do. But those people who are butchers, they experience the results of their decisions. This is why, like, remember COVID, they tracked it most likely to this animal market that was selling meat.
Yeah.
Right. And a lot of those people that were at ground zero with COVID, they died. Right, because of selling dogs and meat and bats and things like this in the wet market. They think this is where COVID came from, and that's why all of us experienced COVID for all those years that we experienced COVID, and now it's still here. This is our gamma, where we've had so much interaction with animals. This is where HIV came from. This is where swine flu came from. Mad cow disease. A lot of these diseases are coming from the animal realm because of our interaction with them. Whereas if animals just were in the forest being animals and humans were here being humans and we didn't have this constant interaction, we wouldn't see all those illnesses and viruses and sicknesses coming to us. But this is our unwise decisions that are leading to these illnesses coming into our population, where we can eliminate all of that if we chose. Yeah. But each individual has to choose for themselves.
Oh, thanks so much. A lot of profound thought. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right. You have a question too? Oh, okay.
But isn't it all food like polluted? Like even plant-based food? Like if you go to a supermarket and you buy the hamburger that are pre-made, like isn't all like even if you go to McDonald's and you get a vegetarian hamburger, like that's also not helping the planet? Or if you get vegetables that come from the other side of the world with flights.
Yeah, so if you look at our world, we have so many chemicals and so many things that we've created that there's lots of pollution in the world, right? Like you can't get to a perfect solution where everything's completely purified at this point in time. It's very challenging to do that because of our world is really at this low point right now, that the world and humanity has reached a point where we have so much pollution in our environment. If you look at trying to get to a perfect solution today, that's not how people gradually evolve. That's not how humanity would gradually evolve. What you do is if you realize that you're making unwise decisions about a certain thing and you're looking to ultimately get to a much better solution, you're going to have to take incremental steps to get to that. So while moving to a plant-based food supply, there's some people who use pesticides in their plants, right? And this is polluting the earth, it's polluting the water, it's polluting the plants in some cases. But this is a better option than continuing to kill animals for our food. So while that's not perfect, where it would be better if people didn't use pesticides to harvest food, that's the better option right now than continuing to kill animals. So when you're trying to get to an improved decision, which might be this perfect decision, you typically need to go through incremental improvements before you ultimately get to the perfect decision. So as a humanity, as all of humanity, you don't necessarily have control over whether somebody used pesticides or not, but you can try to do a little bit of research about where you purchase things from and choose to try to purchase things from places where they don't have pesticides. But you need to be able to look at it as an incremental improvement rather than I'm going to move from the meat to this perfect solution where everything's pure. That's very unlikely that you do that. Oftentimes, whether it's in your personal life or in your professional life, whenever you're trying to improve a company or improve your relationship, there's going to be incremental decisions that ultimately get you to the perfect decision. But there might be 3, 4, 5, 6 decisions that you need to make to gradually improve before you ultimately get to the ideal decision. So in our generation, I don't think we're ever going to get to a point where everybody in the world is practicing the teachings and everything is completely pure. But if we choose to incrementally improve, then maybe 500 years from now, 1,000 years from now, 5,000 years from now, as humanity gradually evolves, they can ultimately get to a perfect decision where there aren't chemicals being used in the production of our food, and then we can have more pure food. But right now, this is like, we need to eat what we can eat and what we have available to us. If we realize this is an unwise decision to eat animals, then we can eliminate that and now move to this better decision, recognizing it's not the perfect decision, but it's a better decision than where we have been, perhaps. Any other questions? Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions here. I see you guys using the restroom and taking a break here and there. Feel free to do that as we go. Based on the time, I'm just going to go ahead and keep teaching you guys so that we can finish up at 12:30. So I'm going to move on to the next part, which is the mental discipline section. Now we're going to be talking about right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. This is where you're really going to see the uniqueness of the Buddhist teaching shining through. You probably see that a little bit here with right view and right intention. And then, this right speech, right action, right livelihood, there's definitely some clarity there that you don't necessarily get with other teachings. But now you're going to start seeing something that's very unique to the teachings of the Buddha, which is this mental discipline section. So I'm going to read the steps that the Buddha taught for the Eightfold Path, and then I'm going to explain it to you. So this 6th step of the Eightfold Path is called right effort. These are his words. I'll read it to you and then I'll explain it to you. He says, "In what, monks, is right effort? Here, monks, a monk rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to prevent the arising of unarisen, evil, unwholesome mental states. He rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to overcome evil, unwholesome mental states that have arisen. He rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to produce unarisen, wholesome mental states. He rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to maintain wholesome mental states that have arisen, not to let them fade away, to bring them to greater growth, to the full perfection of development. This is called right effort." So here he's talking about 4 aspects of right effort, and I've summarized it here for you. He's talking about preventing unwholesome mental states that have not arisen from arising in the mind, abandoning unwholesome mental states that have arisen in the mind, produce arisen wholesome mental states to arise in the mind, and maintain wholesome mental states that have arisen, not allowing them to fade away, and work to increase their growth in the mind. This is applying the effort to do this. So anything unwholesome in your mind, you're going to need to eliminate it. Anything wholesome, you're going to need to bring that in and support it, encourage it. Don't allow it to fade. So I've got a few examples here, and these are examples are just examples. What you have that is unwholesome in your mind and what you have that is wholesome is going to be unique to you. But let me just explain to you how this works. So preventing unwholesome mental states that have not arisen from arising in the mind, we could use an example of killing a human being. You probably do not have the thought or the idea of killing another human being anywhere in your mind right now. It's not even remotely in your mind. And what the Buddha is saying is any unwholesome qualities that are not yet in your mind, apply the effort to prevent them from ever coming into the mind. So prevent that from ever coming into the mind. So whenever even the slightest little thought or inclination of killing another being comes in your mind, prevent that from ever coming in. Apply the effort to do that. Abandon unwholesome mental states that have arisen in the mind. Let's say you're in a current relationship and you have a craving to go outside your relationship and have sex with somebody else. You know that this will cause harm in your relationship. So the Buddha is saying if this unwholesome quality is in your mind, that you're interested in going outside your relationship, apply the effort to eliminate that out of your mind, that you're applying the effort to eliminate this unwholesome quality. Another example might be anger, frustration, or irritation. If you notice this coming up in the mind, the Buddha is saying apply the effort to eliminate that out of the mind because it's an unwholesome quality. But again, the unwholesome qualities that you have in your mind right now, it's going to be unique to you. So you're going to need to have the next step, what I'm going to talk about here in a moment, to be able to practice this one. Then the third one here, produce unarisen wholesome mental states to arise in the mind. There's certain wholesome mental states that you're going to learn on this path that are not currently in your mind. You're going to need to apply the effort to bring those into your mind. Generosity is a good example of this. You might find it challenging to practice generosity, where you're giving and sharing more than is strictly required in any given situation, such as your time, your effort, your energy, and your resources. You're going to need to practice generosity in order to get to enlightenment. An enlightened being isn't going to be selfish. They're going to be able to share without any expectation of anything in return. So if you notice that you don't currently have generosity in your mind, you're going to need to apply the effort to bring that into the mind. That's what this one is teaching. Or compassion is another example. What compassion is the concern for the misfortune of others. If you notice that you don't have this in your mind, that means you're probably pretty indifferent. When you see people suffering or having unfortunate circumstances, you might really not care, right? You might have indifference towards this. So what the Buddha is saying is apply the effort to bring this wholesome quality of compassion into your mind and develop that in the mind. Then the fourth one here is maintain wholesome mental states that have arisen, not allowing them to fade away, and work to increase their growth in the mind. So this is any wholesome qualities that are currently in your mind. The Buddha is saying apply the effort to support those, encourage those, don't allow them to fade. An example that I'm using here is something like loving kindness. What loving kindness is a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well, active goodwill. So if you currently have loving kindness in your mind, where you are interested in seeing other beings be well, but maybe in other situations you're kind of angry, you're kind of bitter to people, that means that that loving kindness has not been brought to full growth and full development. So you're going to need to apply the effort to take that loving kindness that you have in some situations, and you're going to need to develop it and encourage it, support it, help it to grow, and bring it to the full perfection and development where you can be loving and kind with every single being around you. Then there's this quality of sympathetic joy. What sympathetic joy is this is the opposite of jealousy or envy. This is having joy for others' success, even if you didn't contribute to it. So if you notice that you are joyful when other people experience successful things, maybe your friends are going on vacation, or they got a new house or a new car, a new job, and you're like, oh, I'm pleased for you. That's wonderful. That's great for you. That's sympathetic joy, right? That even though you didn't contribute to their success, you're joyful for their success. But maybe in other situations, you're kind of jealous and you're kind of envious. So you haven't yet brought this sympathetic joy to full growth and full development. So you're going to need to apply the effort to do that, right? So the things that you have that are unwholesome in your mind, or the things that you have that is wholesome, is going to be unique to you. But at least you understand how to apply this. The first one is you're preventing unwholesome qualities from coming into the mind. The second one is any unwholesome qualities that are currently in the mind, you're applying the effort to eliminate them. The third one is any wholesome qualities that are not yet in your mind, you're bringing those into the mind, applying the effort to do that. And then the fourth one is any wholesome qualities that are currently in your mind, you're going to support those, encourage those, don't allow them to fade. Bring them to full growth and full perfection. Okay, so this is right effort. Now I'm going to teach you right mindfulness. You wouldn't be able to practice right effort without right mindfulness. You're going to need right mindfulness. So I'm going to read it to you, and then I'm going to teach it to you. So here the Buddha says, in what monks is right mindfulness? Here, monks, a monk resides reflecting on body as body, dedicated, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside craving and worry for the world. He resides reflecting on feelings as feelings, dedicated, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside craving and worry for the world. He resides reflecting on mind as mind, dedicated, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside craving and worry for the world. He resides reflecting on mental objects as mental objects, dedicated, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside craving and worry for the world. This is called right mindfulness. So what he's talking about here with mindfulness is the 4 foundations of mindfulness, which I'm going to talk to you about and help you to understand in detail. But before we talk about the 4 foundations of mindfulness, let me just give you kind of a shortcut to right mindfulness, which is developing awareness of the mind. When you first get started with right mindfulness, sometimes it's better to just think about it as awareness of mind. That's what you're trying to develop, is awareness of the mind. When you're in the unenlightened state and before you've really learned these teachings and you started developing meditation, oftentimes you're not aware of what's going on in the mind. You're just kind of walking through life, plowing through life maybe, knocking down trees, burning up the forest, right? Wondering who lit the fire, when in reality it was us who lit the fire. So you might just be walking through life without having any awareness of what's going on in your mind. So a first step for you might just start to be more aware of your mind. That might be what you start doing. And with the meditation, it's going to help you to do that as you just start building a bit more awareness of your mind. So you might be able to think about it like that just to get started. But then as you get going with right mindfulness and you're developing your meditation practice more deeply, you would ultimately like to understand what's called the 4 foundations of mindfulness. This is what you're going to ultimately need to practice in order to get to enlightenment. This is where the Buddha is talking about body as body, feelings as feelings, mind as mind, mental objects as mental objects. What he's talking about is having awareness of the bodily sensations, the feelings, the condition of the mind, and the mental objects. What this is this is showing you the life cycle that discontentedness is going to experience as it's arising in your mind. If you have craving, desire, attachment in your mind, and you're wanting something to be a certain way, and now you don't get what you want, before the anger arises as a feeling, there's going to be some bodily sensation. There's going to be tingling in the chest, rising from the feet up to the chest, maybe some tightening in the chest, maybe some pain in the heart, maybe tightening in the throat. You might feel heat in your face. You might feel pressure in your skull. You guys know what I'm talking about? You guys experience these bodily sensations before you get angry, before you get frustrated, before you get agitated, or maybe before you get shy. You notice queasiness in the stomach, right? We call it butterflies in the stomach. Those butterflies in the stomach, that's a bodily sensation that's cluing you in that your mind is about to become discontent. You're about to become shy. That's the feeling, right? So there's these bodily sensations that are kind of like an early warning system alerting you that you're about to become discontent. Whether it's a pleasant feeling, a painful feeling, or a feeling that's neither painful nor pleasant. You may or may not be aware of these bodily sensations right now, but there is a bodily sensation that's occurring before your mind experiences a conditioned feeling. If you don't notice those bodily sensations, you're going to need to start developing awareness of them. Your meditation is going to help you with that, but then in daily life, you're going to start to become more aware of these bodily sensations. Because what you would like to do is you would like to cut off and let go of that bodily sensation. That's restraining the mind. So as you're getting this early warning system of the anger, or the frustration, or any other discontentedness that's arising, you'd like to cut it off and let it go. This is why you're practicing breathing mindfulness meditation, to let go of that thought and bring the mind back to the breath. So that when you're letting go and letting go and letting go, you're training the mind to be able to let go, so that now in daily life with your mindfulness, your awareness of mind, when you're noticing the bodily sensations starting to arise, you can apply right effort to cut it off and let it go. And you'll be able to cut it off and let it go if you've been doing your meditations and you're consistently developing your mind to easily let go. Because you'll have mindfulness, you'll notice that feeling starting to arise as a bodily sensation, and you'll be able to easily let go. So you'd like to cut it off as a bodily sensation. If you don't notice it as a bodily sensation because your mindfulness isn't fully developed yet, and you need more work on that, of course, because you're just getting started, then it might become a feeling. Your mind might get angry. Your mind might get frustrated. Your mind might get agitated or annoyed. And you can cut it off and let it go there too. Sometimes you need to redirect the mind, take the mind in a different direction, go for a walk, go for a bike ride, go do something else. That's a way to cut off and let go. If you miss it as a bodily sensation, if you miss it as a feeling, then it's going to start affecting the condition of your mind. Have you ever been angry for a few hours or a few days or like a week or two? You've been agitated? Of course you have, right? That's because the mind had a craving. You experienced a bodily sensation that you weren't even probably aware of. The feeling came into the mind. That feeling continued to reside in the mind. And now it affected the condition of your mind. For the next few hours, the next few days, the next week or two, you've been generally agitated and annoyed. This is the mind experiencing the arising of discontentedness, and the mind is now experiencing this discontentedness through all of these four foundations. And then if you don't cut it off as a bodily sensation, you don't cut it off as a feeling, you can cut it off as a condition of the mind, where if you notice for a few hours you're kind of agitated, annoyed, you're going to need to cut that off and redirect the mind and take it to a different direction. Because if you don't, it's going to feed this mental object. What a mental object is it's a deeply rooted container in the mind that is very polluted. And in this example, the mental object is ill will, right? As I was talking about yesterday, we weren't born with ill will in the mind. We weren't born with hatred. When we came out of our mom's stomach and we went into the nursery at the hospital, we didn't hate other babies. We didn't look at other babies and hate them and have anger towards them, because we didn't have this mental object in our mind. It didn't exist. But we did have craving, and we did have ignorance, right? So when we were growing up and we had our cravings and we got our cravings fulfilled, we got pleasant feelings. But when we didn't get our cravings fulfilled, we got angry and we got upset. And now we started experiencing this, where there was bodily sensations, there was a feeling, it affected the condition of our mind, and then our mind formed this mental object of ill will. And now there's this deeply rooted container in the mind of ill will, where right now you're not angry. Right now you're not upset, right? You're just sitting here listening to me talk. But if you go out there in the world and one of your cravings get triggered, your ill will can come up, because you've got this container of ill will in the mind, right? So what you're trying to do is you're trying to stop this process from occurring, that you would like to have this mindfulness or this awareness of mind so well developed that you can notice the bodily sensation of any discontentedness that is coming up, and you can prevent that from ever becoming a feeling. You can cut it off and let it go. When people hear me describe this, sometimes they think it's suppressing a feeling. You're not actually suppressing your feeling. You're actually cutting it off before it even becomes a feeling. You're trying to rewire the mind and no longer allow it to get these conditioned feelings, because there's the bodily sensations, then there's the feeling that gets formed. And as soon as the mind forms that conditioned feeling, now you've got a real problem to deal with. The mind is angry. The mind is agitated. The mind is annoyed. It's kind of like if you were going to take a boat from Australia to Indonesia, you would like to prevent the water from ever coming into the boat. Because once the water gets in the boat, you've got a real problem to deal with. Right? You got to get this water out, or else you're going to sink in the middle of the ocean. But if you can prevent this water from ever coming into the mind, prevent the water from ever coming into the boat, you can sail from Australia right over to Indonesia and have a great time, right? So the same thing is true with your mind, is that you would like to prevent this anger from ever entering the mind. You would like to prevent the agitation, the annoyance, the frustration, the guilt, the shame, the fear, the boredom, the loneliness, all these discontent feelings. You like to prevent them from ever coming to the mind. So this body that you have, this mind that you have, there's an early warning system that the Buddha is cluing you into. that if you're aware of this early warning system, you can take action before the mind ever gets angry, before it ever becomes frustrated or agitated or annoyed. But you're going to need to develop that mindfulness. You're going to need to develop the awareness of the mind to be aware of these bodily sensations. And you do that through the next step of the Eightfold Path. So here, you're trying to prevent, by applying right effort, you're trying to prevent the feelings from ever coming into the mind. But understand that because your mind isn't fully trained right now, it is going to get agitated. It is going to get annoyed. You can't learn something like this, snap your fingers and instantly implement it. This is the gradual training, the gradual practice, and the gradual progress. So you're going to sometimes get annoyed. You're going to sometimes get frustrated. When you see that conditioned feeling, cut it off there. But more and more, you would like to back that up where you're aware of the bodily sensations and you can notice those sooner and sooner, and you can cut them off easier and easier. And that's where the real practice comes in. Because you know, if you don't cut it off as a bodily sensation, it's going to become a feeling, and now you got a real problem to deal with. And then if you don't cut it off there, it's going to affect the condition of your mind. Now for a few hours, for a few days, you're going to be agitated, annoyed, frustrated, and then it's going to feed this mental object. So if you can cut off and let go at the bodily sensations, then you're using other techniques like loving kindness meditation to break up this mental object of ill will and purify the mind and clear that out of the mind. That's what the loving kindness meditation is there for. It's like a jackhammering that mental object and breaking it up and getting it out of the mind and purifying the mind. So these are the four foundations of mindfulness. There's the bodily sensations, the feelings, the condition of the mind, and the mental objects. And you're going to need to become aware of all of these. These mental objects are the 10 fetters. The 10 fetters are all mental objects. These are the pollutions in the mind that you're looking to uproot and eliminate them out of the mind. So when you're learning each one of these fetters, you're going to learn what the fetter is. You're going to learn about the symptom. You're going to learn about the solution and how to fix it. And you're going to learn how to know that the fetter has been eliminated. So this is where you'll become aware of what those mental objects are so that you can notice them more and more readily when they're in the mind, so that you can take action to eliminate them out of the mind. So these are the four foundations of mindfulness. But you might decide to think about this as just awareness of mind to get started, but then eventually you're going to need to fully develop the four foundations of mindfulness. If you can get to the point where you can notice the bodily sensations and you can take action to cut off and let go of your arising discontentedness there, you're very close to enlightenment. Within the next 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, you're going to get to enlightenment. If you can get to the point where you can notice the bodily sensations of either pleasant feelings, painful feelings, or neither painful nor pleasant, and you can cut it off and let it go, you're very near to enlightenment. That's the words of the Buddha even. He says you're very near to enlightenment at that point. Because now you can really retrain this mind, that the mind's no longer getting these conditioned feelings, that you can notice it before it becomes a conditioned feeling. That over here, you're experiencing the bodily sensations and you cut it off. And you cut it off, and you cut it off, and you cut it off. These bodily sensations associated with discontentedness arising. So the mind's no longer getting these conditioned feelings. If you do this enough, eventually you get to the point where you've eliminated your cravings, desires, attachments, and there's no more conditioned feelings that arise. You don't even notice any bodily sensations associated with discontentedness because you've eliminated all your cravings, desires, attachments. There's no frustration that arises. But initially, as you're going with this, you've got to cut off and let go. You've got to restrain the mind in all those situations. But if you do that enough, eventually your cravings, desires, attachments will be eliminated and there won't be any arising of discontentedness. The mind will just be at ease all the time. Okay? So this is the four foundations of mindfulness. And what's helping you to accomplish this, because this is helping you to accomplish right effort, what's helping you to accomplish this is right concentration. Right concentration is helping you to develop your mindfulness, right? So you need all three of these factors in order to practice the mental discipline. I'm not going to read this one for you, and the reason why is because the Buddha here is explaining the mental states of the jhanas. There's these four preliminary phases that you experience before you get to the first stage of enlightenment. I'm going to explain to you the jhanas later in the retreat. We have a class and I'm going to be teaching you just about the jhanas. Here he's explaining the results of putting together all the path of the Eightfold Path, that once you're putting this together and you're training your mind in this way, you're going to start to experience these jhanas. And these are these preliminary phases. There are certain qualities of mind that you're experiencing as your mind's moving into the jhanas. For example, by the time you get to the second jhana, you no longer have a conscious mind and a subconscious mind any longer. Right now, you have a conscious mind and you have a subconscious mind. Your conscious mind is polluted, but the subconscious mind is more heavily polluted. By the time you get to the second jhana, you've had what's called unification of the mind, or oneness of the mind, that you can observe the entire mind, that there's no longer a conscious and subconscious mind. It's now become one mind. This is one of the qualities that you'll notice, and there's other qualities as well. But the way that you experience the jhanas is by focusing on the Eightfold Path. When the Buddha talks about developing right concentration, he talks about it in other teachings. So I'm going to share with you now how to practice right concentration. What he's describing here in the Eightfold Path is the results of right concentration, of what you're going to experience as a result of right concentration. So now I'm going to explain to you what right concentration is. And then I'll talk to you about the jhanas later in the retreat. So what right concentration is developing a meditation practice and then practicing singleness of mind in daily life. Your meditation practice is going to consist of breathing mindfulness meditation and loving kindness meditation. These are the two meditations that are the primary forms of meditation that you're practicing, because it's addressing two of the three primary problems in the mind. Last night, we talked about craving, anger, and ignorance. Those are the three pollutions, or the three poisons, or the three unwholesome roots. Breathing mindfulness meditation is addressing the craving. The loving kindness meditation is addressing the anger. And then cultivating wisdom is addressing the ignorance, or the unknowing of true reality. Right? So this is why these two meditations are a priority in your practice. Usually you spend about 4 to 6 weeks developing your breathing mindfulness meditation. Usually develop that first so that you have a really good solid practice with that, about 2 to 3 sessions per day, building up to 30 minutes or more. The 30 minutes or more part, it usually takes sometimes 6 months, a year, even 2 years to build up to that. Some people can do it right out of the gate, but other people can't. So don't put pressure on yourself to get to 30 minutes per session. Wherever you are, that's where you are. You just start wherever you are. If it's one session for 5 minutes a day or 5 minutes a session, great, start there. Or if it's 2 for 10 minutes, okay, that's where you start. What you'll notice is frequency is more important than duration. So if it's a matter of 1 for 30 minutes a day or 30 minutes a session, or 2 for 15 minutes, go for the 2 for 15. You'll notice that frequency is more supportive and more helpful to you. And then you just gradually expand that 15 minutes to be wider and wider and longer and longer. There's 2 other specialized meditations, which is the meditation to eliminate sexual cravings and the meditation to realize non-self. Not everybody's going to need these, but I will share these with you as part of the teachings that I share. In this retreat, I'm going to share with you the meditation to realize non-self. The meditation to eliminate sexual cravings, I teach that at different times in the various programs that I teach. It's not as part of this retreat, but if you ever need this, you can always come to me and I can talk to you about it privately, or you can see volume 1, chapter 11. It's in there. You can see it there. And I've recorded it in different classes and stuff like this. This is like if you had 10 different boyfriends and girlfriends and you realize now you would like to just have one, you might need to bring your sexual cravings down a bit. Or maybe you now are older, you've decided you're going to eliminate sexual cravings, but you're having trouble to do that and you'd like to eliminate sex 100%. This is a meditation that can help you to do that. So there's 2 other specialized meditations, but not everybody's going to need those. The first 2, everyone's going to need. Breathing mindfulness and loving kindness meditation. So you'd usually focus on developing those first. So this is helping you to develop your mindfulness, or your awareness of mind, and your concentration, as well as eliminating your anger, which is going to help you have more concentration, because whenever your mind's angry, your mind's frustrated and agitated, you don't have concentration at that time. So by using these 2 meditations, it'll bring down your pollutions and help you have more concentration. Then the second part of this is you would like to practice singleness of mind in daily life. What this is that some of us have been taught to do multitasking, and this is very unwise. This is something that came about in the 1960s when computers first came out, that computer chips can multitask. A human being's mind cannot. But when computer chips came out, human beings thought that we should be computers and we can multitask. So people started trying to multitask. But you're not actually doing multiple things at one time. What you're doing is your mind is rapidly cycling from thing to thing to thing to thing to thing. You're only doing one thing at a time. But maybe you're doing the talking on your phone to your mom for 3, 5, 6 seconds. And now your mind's rapidly cycling to watching TV for 3, 4, 5, 6 seconds. And now it's rapidly cycling to eating the sandwich in your hand. And now it's rapidly cycling back to talking to your mom. And now your mind is moving around like this, boom, 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 boom. And if you're doing this at work, like 8 hours, 10 hours a day, when you get home, you're going to find it's really challenging to relax. Your mind's going to be overactive and you're going to have a lot of stress. So what you would like to do is just do one thing at a time, and you'll actually be more productive. Oftentimes people think that when they're multitasking, that they're going to be more productive, but it's actually just the opposite. That if I was talking to my mom, she's already dead, I can't talk to her, but if she was alive and I was talking to my mom, if I was watching TV and I'm eating a sandwich, my mind's rapidly cycling, and this conversation that probably would have been 10 or 15 minutes, it's now 45 minutes because I've extended the amount of time that I'm having to talk. And now when I'm talking to mom, you're not going to have your full wisdom to practice right speech. And now you might stumble over your words. You might say something that's unwise. You might damage your relationship with your mom. You got to go back and clean this up later. And you've created this difficulties in your relationship. And whatever TV program that I was watching, I didn't fully digest it, right? And then even this sandwich, I didn't fully digest that either. I might have a stomach pain. I might have to go lay in bed and now get over the stomach pain. So you think with the ignorance or the unknowing of true reality that doing this multitasking, that you're actually being more productive, but in reality, you're spending more time having to sort all this stuff out and clean all this stuff up. And even when you get off the phone, if you've ever done what I'm describing, you might have agreed to something and you get off the phone and you're like, what did I agree to? I can't even remember what I promised that person. And now you got to call them back and be like, hey, Barbara, I'm so sorry. I know I agreed to do something. What was that I told you I was going to do now? Right? Is you're wasting more time. Whereas if you would have just had your 10-minute conversation, stay focused on that conversation, dealt with it, done and over, move on to the next thing. Your mind can be concentrated. What you're doing with right concentration and singleness of mind is you're getting the mind more and more used to being in the middle and practicing being in the present moment. If you had a piece of wood and you had a rod of steel and you grinded this steel back and forth over the wood, when you first started doing this, the steel would start popping around all over the place because there's no groove there yet. So when you first start practicing singleness of mind, your mind's going to bounce around and pop around quite a lot because it's not used to being in the middle and having focus and concentration and clarity. But that steel rod, if you grind it back and forth long enough, it's going to create a groove in the wood, and it's going to get deeper and deeper in that groove, and it's going to be very challenging for it to pop out. And if it does pop out, you'll know it right away. You'll be able to bring it right back into that groove and now go back and forth with this groove. So your mind is the same way. If you can practice meditation and practice singleness of mind in daily life, initially it's going to pop around. It's going to bounce around a lot. But if you practice this for longer and longer periods of time, you're going to get in this groove where the mind can be focused and have clarity, and it can be singleness of mind, right? You can just do one thing at a time. But if you continue to allow the mind to bounce around, you're not going to be able to cultivate your concentration and your focus and your clarity. So by practicing singleness of mind, you're going to notice that the quality of concentration is going to come into the mind more and more, and it'll be easier and easier for you to practice it, and the mind won't bounce around. In fact, you're probably practicing singleness of mind right now. You're listening to my voice. You're not thinking about the elephant sanctuary. You're not thinking about lunch. You're not thinking about your boyfriends or girlfriends or husbands and wives who aren't here, or you're not thinking about your children maybe. But if those thoughts come up, cut that off and let it go and bring the mind back here and listen to the voice. Or if you're in a business meeting and you notice that your mind's wandering, cut that off and bring it back. Or if you're in a conversation and you notice your mind's wandering, cut that off and bring it back. That's practicing singleness of mind. And more when you're doing that, you get this groove deeper and deeper, and your mind just won't go anywhere else. So like when I'm talking to you guys, I'm just talking to you. I'm not thinking about the elephant sanctuary. I'm not thinking about lunch. I'm just focused on talking to you and making sure that you understand these teachings, right? So now I can be very focused and very concentrated to do that. And this is where you can be very productive in your life, whether it's personal relationships or professional relationships. Practicing singleness of mind will help you get more clarity and more focused. Initially, it can be a challenge to do this if your mind's used to bouncing around, but over time, you'll get more and more used to this, and now your mind will do it more and more naturally, and you can do it with ease, where your mind will just always be focused and always be concentrated. So if you're writing an email and you've got a YouTube video playing in the background, this isn't singleness of mind. This is unwise. What you would like to do is pause the YouTube video and then write your email, and now you bring forth all your wisdom to write that email. And then when you're done, you can be confident that you wrote a really good email, press send, and now watch your YouTube video, right? Rather than trying to do multiple things. Or if you're eating and you're watching a YouTube video, or you're eating and you're surfing Facebook, this is the mind rapidly cycling back and forth. What people will typically say is that if they just eat, they feel bored or they feel lonely. Right? But that's because of the craving. The mind's craving. So the last thing you're interested in doing is feeding the craving, because if you give it this YouTube or you give it the Facebook while you're eating, you haven't actually solved the problem. In that moment, your mind's rapidly cycling back and forth. But someday when you don't have YouTube anymore, or you don't have Facebook, your mind's going to be bored. It's going to be lonely. So what you would like to do is get rid of this craving, where the mind can just sit there and just peacefully eat all by yourself, and you can be joyful. And you can be peaceful, and you can get rid of the craving. And now you just eat and you enjoy your food, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and it's done and over with. You had a great meal, and now you move on to the next thing, right? So if you allow your mind to rapidly cycle back and forth like this with any of these kinds of tasks, it's just going to keep doing that. And you're going to find it very hard to be relaxed. You'll find stress and anxiety coming into the mind. But if you can get this groove that we're talking about, then you can be focused and have concentration and clarity, and your mind will be able to do this more and more readily and more easily. So this is what right concentration is: meditation and practicing singleness of mind in daily life. So we'll talk about the jhanas at some point in this retreat, but here's a summarization of the mental discipline. Right effort is taking the initiative to eliminate unwholesome aspects of the mind and cultivate wholesome qualities in the mind. Applying the effort to do that. It's not going to just happen naturally. You got to apply the effort to do that. And then the mindfulness is awareness of the mind, but more specifically, the 4 foundations of mindfulness, practicing being aware of the bodily sensations, the feelings, the condition of the mind, and the mental objects. You're going to need to develop awareness of all 4 of those over time. Your meditation is going to help you to do that. So that's where right concentration comes in. So you're practicing meditation and you're developing singleness of mind, and eventually you're going to start experiencing the jhanas, where these are the preliminary phases that the mind goes through. And you're going to notice these improved qualities of mind. You're going to notice more joy. You're going to notice more mindfulness in the mind. You're going to notice all these different qualities that we're going to talk about with the jhanas starting to come into the mind. And that's your indication that you're putting together the Eightfold Path really well. That's like the light bulb flickering when you start experiencing the jhanas. Because if you came into a room and you flipped on the light switch, the light's going to flicker, 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 boom. Unless you have an LED light, right? But the old lights, it's going to flicker, 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 boom. Now it's going to be on. So it's the same thing with enlightenment, that it flickers for a while, oftentimes multiple years before you actually experience complete enlightenment. That you can go periods of time where you're peaceful for a month or 2 or 3, and then you get a little bit of discontentedness. So your light's going to flicker for a while. So by the time you get to the jhanas, you're going to notice more peacefulness, more joy. You're going to notice more concentration. You're going to notice more mindfulness and more memory, more clarity of mind. I'm going to talk to you about what the jhanas are, but those are indications to you that you're putting together the Eightfold Path. You're going to need to put that together and dial it in order to start experiencing the jhanas. So this Eightfold Path, it's these 8 individual steps that you're dialing in closer and closer. And you're going to need to probably revisit this more than one time. Usually what the Buddha did when students first started is he focused them on right view first. Developing right view, understanding craving, desire, attachment is causing your own discontent feelings, taking responsibility for your own feelings. Then he would focus you on the moral conduct, because as long as you're causing harm through your speech, your actions, or your livelihood, that's all harm that you're going to have to deal with. It's all going to come back to you. So the sooner you can knock down your unwholesome moral conduct, and the sooner that you can start practicing wholesome moral conduct, the better for you, because you're putting less and less harm in the world. So improving your moral conduct around speech, actions, and livelihood is a priority that the Buddha would prioritize. And then all the while, you're working on your mental discipline. So it's not like you're mastering step 1 before you move to step 2. You're actually practicing all 8 at the same time. You're kind of dialing them all in at the same time and kind of tweaking them as you go. In a situation where you see you've practiced wrong speech, don't beat yourself up about that. You're not going to be perfect with right speech right now. But instead, where you've made a mistake, just apologize to the person. Hey, I'm so sorry. I was wrong here. I didn't mean to talk to you that way. I'm looking to do better, and I'm going to work on this, right? You can't be perfect today. So where you make a mistake, just acknowledge that mistake, apologize, look in the book, look in the resources, look in the videos, reach out to your teacher, get help, try to figure out where you need to improve, and then just get better at it. And just dial these in slowly but surely. Okay, any questions on these? Yes.
Well, if personal existence view it's a mental object, what would be the mental states related to that?
That's what we're going to talk about when we get to the class. We're going to have one class just about personal existence view, where we'll talk about all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm.
And I don't really know what does it mean compassion, because for me it's like feeling sad for others, but that's discontentedness, no?
Yeah, compassion is not feeling sad. If you have excessive amount of compassion, where you have craving, desire, attachment, that's what's going to produce the sadness. Even something like compassion, you need to practice it in the middle way. What compassion is the concern for the misfortune of others, where you're concerned for their misfortune, but you understand any misfortune they're experiencing is based on their decisions. It's not based on your decisions. So you can't rush into somebody's life, make a bunch of decisions for them, and fix their life. They have to cultivate wisdom to be able to make wise decisions and improve their life for themselves. So you can maintain concern, where you're concerned for others' misfortune. And in some cases, you might practice generosity to be able to help them, but you're trying to get away from this craving, desire, attachment, where your mind's longing, yearning, wanting the world to be a certain way, but also you're not interested in being over here where your mind's indifferent and you could care less about how people think and what they do and how they experience life. So you'd like to come to the middle, where the compassion is the middle, the concern for the misfortune of others. And you can maintain that concern without necessarily having to do anything. The compassion doesn't mean that you have to do something. The concern is just maintaining the thought or the mental quality that you have concern for this person's misfortune. And then because of that compassion, you might take action in some situations, but in other situations, you're not going to be able to. So if you have craving for the world, like the way the Buddha was talking about, craving and worry for the world, if you have craving and worry for the world, you'll hold on to the world, wanting the world to be a certain way. So then when a war breaks out, you'll be sad and you'll be frustrated. Or if you see like a dog on the street suffering some illness, you'll be sad and you'll be upset because of the craving and worry for the world. But also if you are indifferent and you walk down the street and you saw a dog suffering and you're like, I don't care, that's not my dog, who cares? Or, who cares about that war? I'm not getting bombs dropped on my house, who cares? So either side of that, you're not experiencing peace and joy. So the middle is to have concern. And then that concern sometimes motivates certain actions, but not always. Like, for example, with the war, I can't do anything to fix the war. There's just nothing I can do to solve that. That's other people making those decisions. But of course, I have concern for those beings. It's unfortunate that those bombs are being dropped and there's war that is happening, but that's decisions that they're making. I didn't make those decisions, but I have concern for that situation. But in this situation, I can't take any action. But in other situations, I might be able to. So like when COVID happened and there was a lot of people here that were suffering that didn't have food, I was able to donate some food and I was able to help some people here during COVID due to the compassion, due to the concern for the misfortune of others. So this is what compassion is having concern for the misfortune of others. Yes, ma'am.
Hello. So about the mind kindness meditation. So when we meditate, so those kind of picture or thought. When it's come to me, and then so I should kind of cut off or eliminate, and then so that kind of a process is called loving kindness meditation, or I'm not sure the exact meaning of the loving kindness meditation.
Okay, so in the breathing mindfulness meditation, you're cutting off anything that arises and you're bringing the mind back to the breath. And this is helping you get that mindfulness, awareness of mind, the concentration, and to eliminate craving, desire, attachment. The loving kindness meditation, I haven't taught you it yet in this retreat, is where you're doing those affirmations. I think you've been in classes before where I've done this, where you're doing the affirmations in the mind and you're rewiring the mind to be loving and kind. If you haven't been in any of those classes yet, I'm going to be doing that. I think tomorrow I'm going to be teaching you guys loving kindness.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. We have something coming in here on Zoom. I need to look with my eyes, can't read the Zoom text, so I need to get in real close here. Okay, Kushi says, hello, sir. When we are communicating with people who have a lot of craving and they are complaining things in their lives, and they also share or ask at some point about how to get out of the problems or challenges that they are facing. But I am not at a place where I developed, I think you're maybe saying Brahma Viharas here, the four healthy mental states. So I have a bit of cravings to help them get out of it. Oh, Koshi's raising her hand. Perfect. Go ahead, Koshi. She's going to say it so that I don't have to read all of this. My eyes have trouble reading. Go ahead, Koshi. Yeah, go for it, Koshi.
I was asking that if the people are like asking you directly when they are facing some challenges or problems in their life, but because they are asking you directly, so now in this conversations and communication, I have to maybe give them solutions sometimes, but not all the time. So, but many times they are not at a place where they can understand. I sometimes drop some teachings here and there, but not all the time I can help, because sometimes it is from my craving as well that I want to help them get out of the situation, see things clearly, and not all the times that they ask, but I also feel like if they see things correctly, like with the right view, then it will be helpful for them. So it's a bit of my craving there somewhere. So how can I go through conversations like this where if I have this craving, then how do I address it? And if I don't, then how do I help them?
Okay, perfect. So you guys understand what she's saying, right? So she has this craving to help people and she has the wisdom to help them, and she'd like to kind of sprinkle some teachings in there to help them, but yet she has this craving, right? So as long as you are operating through craving, the mind's making unwise decisions. So in order to help somebody, you need to first eliminate your own cravings. So what I would suggest you to do is now, for the foreseeable future, whenever you're in a situation where somebody is potentially needing help and you see that they could use help, is unless they're asking you directly, don't help them. If they're asking you directly, go ahead and help them. But if you're just seeing that they could use help and you have the wisdom to help them, don't help them until somebody asks you for help. So restrain your mind so that you can eliminate your craving. Once you do this for 3 months, 6 months, a year, and you no longer have a craving to help people, now you'll be able to more skillfully help people. But as long as that craving's in the mind, you won't be able to help them because you're going to be making unwise decisions through the craving. So you're going to need to go a period of time where you distance yourself from this so that it allows the mind to let go of the craving. So in this particular example, the way you do it is just don't offer any help unless the person's asking for help. And you're just going to need to do that temporarily until you eliminate your craving. It's the same kind of thing, like say you were attached to chocolate cake, and every time you go to this restaurant you want to eat this chocolate cake, and when they don't have your chocolate cake you get frustrated and you get agitated and you get annoyed. My advice to you would be to go away from the chocolate cake for 3 months, 6 months, a year. Train your mind to not eat that chocolate cake, but then once you eliminate your craving, you can start eating the chocolate cake again, because if they have it, you eat it, you enjoy it. If they don't have it, you're completely fine with that too. But as long as you have the craving, you're going to not be able to be peaceful and joyful, because when they have it, you're happy, and when they don't have it, you're angry and frustrated. So this is the same type of approach, the same methodology, but just applying it to your situation. So when you're in situations where you see someone could use help, I suggest to you to not help them. Restrain your mind. This was what will eliminate your craving. And then 3 months, 6 months, a year, you notice that your craving's been eliminated. Then you can start saying, Barbara, I noticed that you're really frustrated there. Would you like some suggestions, or would you like my advice? And you can start offering your advice that way. But at that point, your craving will be gone. So now you'll be able to more readily help them, and your mind will be peaceful and joyful in those situations. Okay. I think she got her answer.
Yeah, right. But I always have this good intention.
Mm-hmm.
But when they are asking me directly, but even when I place some teachings here and there, it's hard for them to understand. So I don't know.
Yeah, in general, you're not interested in teaching anybody unless they're asking for your help. If an individual is going around pushing teachings on other people, this is one's mind's own craving, and it also comes from the ego as well. So the way that the Buddha taught is he would only teach when people asked him for help. He wouldn't go around to people's house and push the teachings onto people. So the suggestion about sprinkling teachings into people and kind of helping them, this is like your mom, your dad, your brothers or sisters. This is something that I teach. Kushi's been learning with me for about a year or so. So I've taught her this, that where her mom's mind is struggling with impermanence, there's ways to kind of like sprinkle teachings into someone's life and kind of help them a little bit. And you can do these kinds of things with people who are close to you. But by and large, for the most part, you're not interested in doing these kinds of things, or you're not interested in teaching anybody unless somebody's asking you for help. So you can maintain your wholesome intention that you would like to see others be well and practicing right intention. You can maintain that intention while not actually taking the action to help them. So even though you see somebody needs help and you have the wisdom to be able to help them, they haven't asked you for help yet. So you can maintain your right intention of having that goodwill towards them without actually taking the action to help them.
Okay, again, thank you.
Okay.
I have one question.
Mm-hmm.
That's different from this. So over here we have some street cats and we feed them, but even though there are like all vegetarian cat foods available, it's their need that they need some animal content food. So by me buying the food that has such things, is it me intentionally having this intention of killing animals because I'm just providing this animal who she's a street cat, so I'm just helping it, and I have this intention to feed this cat. So, and it's not only the cat's craving for that certain kind of food, but it's also its body's need. So, how would you reflect on this thing?
Yeah, what I would do in this situation is if you'd like to help the animal, you know that it needs food, it's a street animal and it doesn't have food, is you can feed it periodically Whereas if you fed it every single day, it's going to become dependent on you. It's going to be attached to you. And then when you're gone, it's not going to have anywhere to get food. It's not going to know where to get food. So like here at the temple, we have temple dogs, and I feed them occasionally, maybe once a week, twice a week. That way they still have other people to get food from. And it's not just me, because I'm not here every day. So if I fed them every single day, they would get attached to me and they wouldn't have anybody else to get food from. So the same thing is true about your situation, is that you'd like to help this being. So feed it 2 or 3 times a week if that's what you need to do. And then that way it will find food other places too. It's just not always dependent on you. And even in situations where it maybe comes to your house and it's waiting for you for food, and sometimes you feed it and sometimes don't. Teach it that, hey, you are impermanent in their life. You can't literally teach a cat through your spoken words, because animals can't learn that way very easily, but you can teach it through your actions, that even when it shows up to your house, you can pet it, you can nurture it, you can take care of it, but then don't feed it sometimes. So that way the cat learns that you're not going to always feed it, and then that way it'll go other places too, and it won't just get attached to you.
And like feeding them cat food which have like meat or animal contents in it, will it be harmful or, you know?
Yeah, if possible, if you can find other foods, that would be ideal. But in this situation, that cat is going to eat some meat, right? If it goes out on its own and it kills animals, it's going to eat those animals. So if you can find other foods that it can eat, like here in Thailand, they often feed animals rice. I don't know if in your country, if that's something that's possible, but oftentimes they feed dogs and cats rice here.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay, let me see if we have any other questions. All right, I'm not seeing any other questions. So what I'm going to do here is end our class for this morning. This is 12:30, where we're going to break for 6 hours. And then this evening at 6:30, I'm going to pick it back up with the 5 precepts, which is a householder's guide to daily practice. These are where you're going to get more language around right speech and right action, where the Buddha really explains it in much more illuminating language. And over the next 6 hours, you guys have free time to go do anything and everything that you like. Or if you'd like to go with us on the excursion, we're going to go to the elephant sanctuary. They're going to be here at 1:30 to pick us up in the vans and take us out. And then they're going to bring us back at 6 o'clock. And out there, they have clothes that we can change into. And then afterwards, we can take a shower. So if you bring with you like shampoo or soap, 7-Eleven, and there's even a beauty shop down the street that actually sells that kind of stuff. If you'd like to get little travel sizes, you can bring those kinds of things if you'd like. Because part of spending time with the elephants, you're going to be making medicines for them. You're going to be feeding them. If you'd like to bathe them, you can get in the stream with them and bathe them and rub them and all those kinds of things. So if you'd like to take a shower over there before you come back, that's something that you have the option to do. But between now and 1:30, if you'd like to get lunch around here somewhere, that would be really helpful for you. Perhaps you maybe need some nourishment. So enjoy your lunch, enjoy your free time. If you're going on the excursion, I'll be going with you guys as well. If you're not, perhaps I'll see you at 6:30. So thank you guys for your interest in learning the teachings of the Buddha, and perhaps we'll see you guys later on this evening at 6:30. Okay, take care. Sawadee krap. Sawadee krap. At 1:30.
Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.